Tonight, Damian Wayne binge-watched all of My Name is Earl and is now going on his own quest for karmic redemption. Harley Quinn / Power Girl becomes the first book not written by Keith Giffen to be published solely, quote, for the lulz, and Prez. All that and more tonight on the Not-So-New 52. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 198 of the Not So New 52. I am your host and I really don't want to spend too long in this intro bit because I know this episode's going to be a long one. Oh boy. So there's only 12 books. Seems like it should be short, but most of them come with a sneak peek in front, and then we also have like a double-length book as well, and then there's something else, but I'll get to that in a sec. So what do we have in terms of books this week? Well, in no particular order at all, we have Black Canary, Harley Quinn / Power Girl, Robin Son of Batman, Superman / Wonder Woman, Sinestro, Justice League of America, Martian Manhunter, Wonder Woman, Secret Six, Dr. Fate, and Doomed. And you may notice there's one little book that I'm leaving off of that, and that's Prez. Prez is the reason this is going to be a long episode. Now, don't get me wrong, there are other books that I spend probably just equally long talking about, but like, I really like Prez. If you take only one thing out of this episode, go listen to the Prez segment. Hell, I might lead with the Prez segment just to not even give you an option. I'm not sure yet, but like, I like that book. You'll see why. I hope you understand why. I mean, maybe I'm in the minority here, but I feel like Prez is absolutely that book that DC was like, we can't keep publishing this because we have like corporate sponsors. But it's doing really well. Anyway, I said I'd keep this short, so I am. That's all I'm going to say on it. We have a JLA is a double wide issue, whole bunch of new number ones scattered throughout. Be sure to check them all out, but we'll start off with whatever my entire editing process says is the best thing to start with. It's Prez. Prez number 1, written by Mark Russell, art by Ben Caldwell. So this one has a sneak peek that was in Convergence. I'm not going to get to it until after I do issue 1 though, because it's kind of spoilery. Honestly, it probably should go after like issue 2 or 3, but whatever. So we open up issue 1 with DC in 2036. Senator Thorne is calling a meeting, and we see a whole bunch of senators have to drop off any recording devices, anything like that. Apparently one senator has a eye that can record things, and so he has to pop it out as well. And essentially the senator's like, look, the current sitting president had a risque personal ad leaked, and so he's not seeking re-election, and ultimately our party does not have any good choices because anybody who's even like kind of popular has a bunch of old selfies floating around the internet that is going to be way too damning for our opponents to use. And they go through like list after list after list until finally they're like, we don't have anybody except for literally the most milquetoast guy or someone who betrays our party values, implying gay. And we finally say like, all right, this guy, Gary Farmer, he's an idiot. He'll do whatever. He'll be a figurehead, more or less. So we cut to the Little Doggy's House of Corn Dogs, where we meet Beth Ross. She is on grill duty, and someone says, hey, you got to clean the grill. I'm doing a training video, so go ahead and just narrate everything you're doing. And we see a real zoomed in view of her like scratching at the grill, trying to get all the grease up, saying like, oh, you got to understand what the grill wants. It's real important. And then all of a sudden she realizes that her hair has fallen into the corn dog fryer, and she's like, oh, you're please tell me you're not putting this on the internet. So then we cut to a debate between two sitting senators, including Senator Thorne. And they're talking about the Food Stamp Reform Act. And if you haven't noticed by this point, the general vibe of this book is that we are bouncing between individual scenes. And these scenes, while telling a narrative, are kind of standalone in their own right and just picking apart and parodying something that is way too real already in the world. So this debate that they have going on at this roundtable discussion has live displays of how much the audience approves or disapproves of either one of the senator's stances. And so Senator Thorne is like, look, we spend billions on food assistance and stamps like that, but the Stamp Reform Act is going to make sure that they can't spend it on things like laziness or drug habits or anything like that. And now we can ferret out people to make sure it won't even cost a dime to the taxpayers. Introducing the taco drone. And it's just a corporate tie-in to this taco company that's going to be dropping off tacos via drones. And the other senator is like, that doesn't seem like it's very nutritious. And the other one says, oh, it's more about just nutrients. In addition to the bill, everyone will get taco drone merch, and check out this clothing that they have the ability to buy. And the other senator's like, you're turning them into billboards. And it's like, no, it's not a billboard, it's gratitude. And you see the approval rating of Senator Thorne, who's saying all these things for taco drone, is just going up and up and up. And the other one's just like, oh, you're turning America's social safety net into a surveillance network. And then he says, it's not about surveillance, it's about freedom and taco freedom. And he's just throwing out buzzwords, and his approval keeps going up and up and up. And he turns to the other senator, and he's like, oh, by the way, I think taco drone is fun. What do you have against fun, Senator? And the other senator's like, what? I'm fine. You see, his approval is just tanking. It's all the way at zero now. And so they cut him off and just say, well, that's all we have for today. Join us tomorrow for trial by Facebook. So we follow Beth. Turns out that Corndog Girl is her name online in viral circles. It's trending. It's viral. But her father is in the hospital. He has some rare influenza or something like that. And his assurance is not going to cover the massive amount of medical invasiveness that would be required to treat this sort of thing. And he's just like, hey, don't worry about it. Like, I don't want you to spend that kind of money on all that stuff. And she's like, hey, don't worry about it. You're going to be okay. It's going to be fine. So then we go to somewhere in Ohio where we get the Puppy Slaps video cast, which is just a podcast that this one presidential hopeful is trying to use to get to the more youthful audience. And he has to sign a release form, and then they start using ping pong paddles to slap him on the ass. And he's like, do I really have to do this? He's talking to his campaign manager, and it's just like, yeah, this guy has 50 million followers in Ohio alone. Like, you're going to need him. You're going to need that vote. So the guy sits down, and the senator's name is Tom Downey, but Puppy Slaps host says Pot Brownie instead. So he's just like, oh, so people can vote on Twitter now, right? Which is apocalyptic in its own idea, but regardless, he's like, yes, it'll improve voter turnout. And then as he's trying to talk about like middle-class jobs being filled by unpaid interns, Puppy Slaps is like, I'll let you finish that thought if you let us get the SWAT team on you. And they bend him over a table and just start slapping his ass as he's giving this monologue on the American middle class. And as he leaves, he's like, please tell me that won me the election. And the campaign manager's like, it's more of an art than a science. So then we cut to this reality show that, to keep it brief, is essentially a Double Dare mixed with Who Wants to Be a Millionaire mixed with Marathon Man or Running Man, whatever it's called. So it's Who Wants to Be a Billionaire, and they've got companions that come on, or contestants who come on, and they have to do these death-defying stunts. And the first one goes on like this big trampoline to grab a big money sack. She misses and like falls into the audience and just like, oh, that looks like it hurts. Then we get this second guy who just wants the money to bring his family into the country. They're on the other side of the border wall. And so he has to go through this horribly claustrophobic tunnel of drills. He goes over monkey bars, over a gator pit, and then the final task is he has to shoot himself somewhere on his body that's not hands or feet, and the only thing he has to stop the bullet is a loaf of bread for powder burns. And it countdown happens, 3, 2, 1, he does it, and now he's a billionaire. And it turns out Beth Ross was actually sitting off to the side ready to compete in this game, but she saw that final task and she's like, I can't do it. And they're like, yeah, for the best. Like, we didn't actually expect anyone else to win today, so we probably won't have time to get to you. So Beth goes back to her dad and says, like, hey, I'm sorry, I just couldn't do it. And Dad's like, don't worry about it. It's not worth it. So then we see how people are commenting on the presidential race, how neither of the candidates are really that great, and therefore voter turnout's going to be super low, despite the fact everyone can vote on Twitter. Turns out that Anonymous is a major player in all this stuff, and they are pushing Corndog Girl as a protest vote, but ultimately because of the Electoral College still being in place. And by the way, they do say that there was a bill pushed for corporate personhood that made it so that there is no age restriction on the presidency or voted office anymore, essentially allowing corporations to be voted into office even if they're under 35. So it allows Beth to technically run as president, but because Electoral College is still a thing, she won't. If she doesn't win a state, she won't have any sort of impact, and someone else will be president. However, in a massive turn of events, because of the Puppy Slaps podcast, turns out that Ohio actually did swing for Corndog Girl, and so neither candidate has the majority of electoral votes, and it goes to the House of Representatives to break the tie. And all the candidates are like, it's whatever. It's a weird little thing. It's a quirk of the rules, but it's not unheard of, so it's not a big deal. And so then we cut finally to a secret CEO meeting at the Bilderberger headquarters. All of the CEOs of these companies have these holographic images in front of their face so that all of them are secretive. And the leader of them is Boss Smiley. He's the one who's in charge of the whole thing. And as everyone else is freaking out over the fact that, like, their candidate might not win this whole thing, Boss Smiley is like, I'm ashamed of you all. You all are so pathetic. It doesn't matter who wins or who loses. We don't play by the rules of these politics. We tell them what to do. That's what we do as corporations. We aren't players in this game. We are the game, and nobody can stop us. As he's hugging around a hologram of Beth Ross Corndog Girl. And that's the issue. So I'll get to the sneak peek real quick, just to say what it is. We have, after everything that happens, spoiler, Beth Ross becomes president-elect, and we see she is on a plane heading to a UN meeting. Turns out that Anonymous is a large enough group at this point that they are recognized at the UN meeting as well. And people are on the news just basically saying, like, what do you think about a 19-year-old being in charge, General? And the General's like, hashtag scared out of my mind, Kathy. And it's like, no, that's great. So as they're flying over top of this country, it turns out they get shot out of the sky by insurgents. The plane crash lands. Everyone luckily is okay. And it's like, well, our cell phones don't work, but that means it's a good thing because that's American technology that can jam our level of cell phones. So we just got to wait until our sentries show up, and they look out in the tree line and say, hey, look, there's our sentries now. And they start unloading on Beth's Secret Service. Beth is hauled out of there as fast as possible. Secretary of State's also there. And Beth's like, why is our own sentries firing on us? Cut to the room where these guys on video game controllers and beanbags are. And it turns out that they are testing out a new Thanksgiving theme thing, because this is all over Thanksgiving, where all the insurgents are replaced by turkeys. So they don't actually know what they look like. The Secretary of State's like, how could you just leave me out there? I'm Secretary of State. God damn it. We shouldn't be heading deeper into the tree line. We need to go out and find a town. And Beth is like, wait, hold on. And he's like, no, shut up. You're not the president yet. And he runs off, and she's like, but I have the satellite phone. And then a huge explosion happens, seemingly taking out a bunch more of the Secret Service. We see Anonymous is trying to get into the UN. They're asked for identification, and just like, well, that kind of defeats the purpose. The guys behind the sentries are still taking shots, taking out Secret Service agents. We have one of the ambassadors is like, I can't go on anymore, Beth. I just have to hide. And she's like, okay, you hide. I'm going to call for help. So she managed to get on the satellite phone. She calls the security conference at the UN, but she doesn't call for America. She calls for someone else, and we see she gives some instructions, and the people on the phone say, okay, we can do that, but you got to get out in the open. So we see a panel where Beth is like crying. She's too scared, and then immediately sucks it up, runs out right in front of the sentries, just holds her hands open wide, and the sentry is like, oh, all right, well, this one's all yours, bud. And so they line up the shot. Turns out she called Anonymous to hack into the robots, turn them on each other, and they explode each other. And guys behind the video game controllers are like, oh, geez, great. There goes our bonus for the holiday weekend. And then we cut to Beth as she arrives at the UN saying, hey, well, we expected you hours ago. Where have you been? And she says, oh, research. So that's a sneak peek. All right. I love this goddamn book. I love this book so much. I read this book at least like half a dozen times because it is just one volume. And I don't want to spoil how it ends, but it does end. So something about just the prescientness of it. It doesn't pull its punches. It doesn't even try to say something along the lines of like, oh, these senators may not be all on the up and up, but for the most part, the senators are still looking out for their people. It's like, no, everyone's corrupt. It's all run by the corporations. It all sucks. Top to bottom, the entire system is broken. And this is less than, at this point, it was 20 years in the future. This is now less than 10 years into our future. And it feels like it. I going into the 2016 election, this was one that really stood out to me and I was super into because it was just so of the moment. But it's only gotten more so over time. Art style, great. The quickness, the pace of the book, also great. I just check it out. Don't wait for me to read the rest of the issues. Read it for yourself. This is a 9.5 for me. And it's only going to keep bouncing around there because it is so goddamn good. So, yeah, I like Prez. Secret Six, number 3, written by Gail Simone, art by Dale Eaglesham. So, I got a little bit to say about this release pattern, but first there's a sneak peek from the Convergence issue, set just mildly in the future. We go to Gotham Museum of Anthropology. Got some security guards walking around, and they're just like, I don't even understand why we're here. It's an anthropology museum. All the people in Gotham, they're after money or big things like that. No one's going to come here. So whatever. But then one of the security guards is newer, and she's just like, what was that? You hear something? And the older one's just like, hey, relax. We've got on loan basically some Navy SEALs, some big time security people. They're wearing bulletproof vests. They've got massive training. There's no way that we could possibly get hurt with them around because they are the best of the best of the best. And we cut to a shot of literally all of them have been killed brutally, violently, and without a sound. So it turns out that in this place is a gem called the Eternity Gem. What is special about it? But it's apparently the thing that they think they need to protect and why all these security people are in. So they eventually come across one of the dead bodies. Security guards are like, you cover me, I'm calling the cops, we're going to get some backup now. And Catman is perched off to the side saying, please do not do that. If you touch that radio, you are dead. And the oldest security guard is like, that's the killer. And he pulls out his gun, starts firing. Catman does some parkour, knocks the woman out, and has the guy by the throat. And he's just like, oh, please don't kill me. Oh, God. So then she pulls up her gun and says, hey, look, let him go. I'm counting to 3. And then a voice off panel says, how about you count to 6 instead? And we see the whole Secret Six has turned up here. And they're like, hey, look, we're not here to hurt you. That's not what we're doing. So we see a sniper is off to the side and is like, hey, I've got him in my sights. Should we take the shot? Should we do it? And then we see Catman talking to Black Alice saying, hey, can you pull up any powers for something to let us know what we're up against? And I swear to God, I didn't even know this was Black Alice's power because I thought it was just she had a demon in her. That was the end of issue 2, but no, it turns out she can just funnel other people's powers, and so she funnels Constantine, and she's got the trench coat and the cigarette and everything, and she's like, oh yeah, it turns out the terrorist threat, the whole reason we're here is fake. It's just thieves preparing to come in here and they'll murder people. And so in come a bunch of thieves rappelling in through the window. Big Shot turns into his big hulky form and starts attacking people. Everyone just starts going at it. Strix ends up taking out the sniper who had a guy in his shots before, and she pulls out a little note saying, sorry, I broke you. And the woman security guard's like, wait a minute, hold on. How did these guys get in? How did they not trigger any of the alarms? And the older security guard says, oh, they must have had an inside man. Click. So At that point, Catman comes in, tackles the guy down. They have already taken care of all the other thieves. Security guard's tied up. Secret Six helps the female security guard up, saying like, oh, I'm so sorry you had to see all that. It's such a rough thing. Yeah, no, we were here to help you. And it's like, oh, well, who hired you? And they're like, we don't know. We were just brought in, but we're going to go find out. And they say, hey, well, I'm sorry. I didn't know you were the good guys. And Catman says, oh, no, trust me. You must be thinking of someone else. So that's a sneak peek. Now, here's the important thing. In this trade, the sneak peek and issue 3 are both set after issue 4. I don't know what happens in issue 4, trying not to spoil myself there, but last issue was them breaking out of the cell and saying, we're going to come and get you. This issue picks up with, sometime later, they're just living in a suburban neighborhood and just doing a thing. I have to assume that the massive delay somewhere between 2 and 3, because it was a very long delay, caused this issue, which was, I think, supposed to be 4 to start with, come out beforehand. I have nothing to back that up. It's just a vibe. So we open with Catman. He's just parkouring around the neighborhood, climbing up on poles and stuff. And he comes across this man who is literally beating his dog, saying like, oh, when I tell you to heel, you heel. And he just starts punching him. Catman grabs his fist and says like, hey, do that again. We're going to have problems. He's like, what, you're a dog lover? He's like, no, I hate dogs. But like, I hate guys like you more. And up rolls a cop. It turns out this dude beating his dog is a sergeant in the police force, so of course he thinks he's invulnerable and all that stuff. And he's just like, yeah, all right, but if you beat that dog again, I'm going to show you what it means to feel pain, cop or not. All of these little sections, all these sequences also have a little banner at the top that results from one of the 7 deadly sins. So like the first one was something about limbo like you mean it. So actually I guess it's more Dante's Inferno than 7 deadly sins, but then the next one is a lust that lingers. So Catman enters the house and turns out Big Shot's like, hey, all right, house meeting, except for Alice, let her be by herself. Who in this house had freaky sex on the couch after our block party the other night? And literally everyone on the couch raises their hand, and he's like, God damn it, okay, please don't do that with the kid in the house. We owe it to her to like try to give her a better place to live because she's had a real rough go of it. And we see Alice is listening at the top of the stairs, and she has this little smile on her face at, you know, being treated like a normal kid. So Big Shot goes upstairs, knocks on her door, and it's just like, hey, you know, you should get some rest. Also, you're drinking straight out of a bourbon flask. Maybe don't do that because you're like, what, 13? And she's like, no. And she says her name is actually Lori, and she'd like Big Shot to call her that. And we see that this is actually Big Shot's house, and inside are all these pictures of a woman. And he's like, yeah, that was the love of my life, my forever gal, but she died on me. And Lori's like, why do people do that? Why do the people we love just have to end up dying on us? And we see a little flashback to her of her being in a hospital bed. She wakes up and a nurse is like, hey, your parents are dead. You were in an accident and they're gone. And she's like, oh, well, you know, thank you for worrying about me. She gives him a little kiss on the cheek and then falls asleep snuggling up on his shoulder. So we see that the rest of the group are down on the couch and they're like, oh, well, you know, maybe we should cook something. How about that? And Porcelain suggests eggs, but they don't have any eggs. There's no food left in the house at all. And so Porcelain and Ventriloquist go out, and they volunteer to go out. Porcelain says, leave Ferdy behind. We're not going to take him with. So we see them leaving the house. They go down the street. They pass by some guys who are just working out in the middle of their front lawn. As they see them walk by, the guys on the front lawn are like, oh, hey, you freaks, what's going on? I just want to talk to you. What, you think you're better than me? As they try to walk on. And so he starts getting like up in their face, doing whatever he can. And then one of them comes up being like, hey, man, I recognize them from the block party. They're the crazy ones. Well, remember when we walked in on your mom getting freaky with that puppet? And he's like, shut up, Artie. So he puts a hand on Porcelain. Porcelain breaks the fingers. Artie then goes for a punch. And it's just easy for Porcelain to absolutely shatter all these guys' bones. And so they walk on, and Porcelain's like, oh, you could have helped, you know, Ventriloquist. And he's just like, yeah, I think the big one liked me. Cut to Ferdy on the couch, 6 straight panels, unmoving, and then he finally says, television is the devil. That's it for Ferdy. So we cut over to, I guess they got the eggs. Catman is cooking just a massive amount of omelets. And in comes Strix, and he's like, hey, Strix, how do you like your eggs? And she writes down, I don't know. And so it's like, okay, that's fine, no problem. Do you think you could set the table? And Strix picks up some plates and walks out and then walks back. And Catman's like, what's up? And she's like, I don't know how. And he's basically like, oh, yeah, right. The Court of Owls really did a number on you. It's okay. Just set it however you want. Just make yourself feel at home. And she writes down again, like, I don't know what home is. And you see her tearing up. And Catman's like, hey, it's okay. It's all good. Don't worry about it. Just make it pretty. Make it as pretty as you want, however you want it. And so she walks out to the table. And then we smash cut to, it looks like the plates are set pretty well. But then also there's a full rose bush just sitting in the middle. And Big Shot's like, is that my mom's rose bush? What? So Catman serves the eggs, and they start talking about living here in Big Shot's home, and they're just like, I hate this suburban place. It's too quiet. It's too weird. I don't like it at all. And they talk about Mockingbird, the people who tried to kill all of them, trying to figure out what that thing is. Big Shot says, look, you all just stay quiet here. You all are going to stay out of sight. I'm going to do the research. We're going to find out who Mockingbird is, and then we're going to go in and we're going to snap his neck like a twig. And everyone's like, okay, yeah, I mean, that sounds good and all that. But like at the same time, it's weird for us to be in these suburbs and we don't want to continue doing that. And Porcelain's like, yeah, I saw a guy earlier today who was out there beating his dog, and Catman stands up like, God damn it, he did it again. So cut to that cop's house, and turns out the muscle-bound guys were also cops, so they call up this sergeant, and they're just like, yeah, no, those freaks beat us up, and he's just like, hey, don't worry about it, we'll take care of them. And then Catman's at the door, and he's just like, oh, never mind, one of them's right here. Backup should be called, and keep this one off the books, keep it off the radar. So Catman's like, I heard you were beating your dog again. We're gonna have problems. And he's just like, yeah, all right, get lost. And Catman just punches him, turns his face like fully 180 degrees, and just continues laying into him down into the guy's living room. And the cop's like, Jesus, what do you want? What do you want? And he's just like, oh, I want you to heal. I want you to heal, you mutt. And he calls in his dog, which he has named Perp. And he's like, you named your dog Perp? Jesus, you were messed up. But Perp is a lovable dog. He's a bulldog, but like he just rolls over on his belly and just wants pets. And in through the door come two cops, guns drawn. They're about to shoot Catman, and in comes Big Shot saying like, oh, I wouldn't do that. So the Secret Six take care of the other cops, not wounding them, just threatening them enough to stop them. And Big Shot comes into the sergeant and is just like, hey, I have files on you, gambling, prostitution, drugs, all that stuff. I can take you out whenever I want. And he's like, oh yeah, well, we're cops. And Catman says, and I'm just going to literally quote what he says here, guess what? Fuck the cops. So he takes the dog pisses on the door on the way out. And as they leave, Catman's like, hey, you were there for me. He's like, yeah, we were all in this together now. We're a team that makes us a family. And so they all go back into Big Shot's house. Big Shot goes upstairs and says he has some paperwork to finish. And he pulls a picture off the wall, and there's a TV there that says, hello, Mr. Dibney. How's my little traitor? And on the screen is Riddler. And Big Shot responds saying, they trust me now, Mockingbird. Okay. Issue as a whole. Weird as hell, but I like it. I think it does a good job of dichotomy of like, these characters seem more normal to us than the weirdness that is this suburban neighborhood. Because it's a weird place. It absolutely is. So it does a good job of making us like the characters more by providing that weird kind of contrast to the backdrop. However, I think the main big focus is that last panel. Riddler is apparently Mockingbird. Riddler wants to know what the secret is, the secret of the sixth thing. And 2, he calls him Mr. Dibney. For anyone who doesn't know DC Comics lore, Dibney is the elongated man, Ralph Dibney. Pretty much Plastic Man, but just not as funny, I guess. He's got his own quirks. So I don't understand what the implications of that are yet. Why he's going around with this other assumed name, what his history is here in the New 52, because we haven't had any elongated man yet. So we'll get there, I suppose. But it's a big reveal for sure. So whatever happens in issue 4, maybe it was meant to be 3. Still don't know about that. I think this one, I enjoyed it enough. I'm going to give it an 8. I think it is oddly creative enough that it really works for me on a level that's really hard to explain. But it's kind of what I would want out of this DCU era, where it's just taking advantage of the fact of do whatever you want as long as it's telling a good story. So, yeah, I feel comfortable in an 8. Justice League of America #1, written by Bryan Hitch, art also by Bryan Hitch. So I hesitate to call this Justice League of America. It's usually touted as JLA or JLA Power and Glory, but it's Justice League of America. That's how its indica is. So we open this one up. Oh, by the way, this is extra sized. This is, I think they specifically call this like a widescreen, like theatrical comic sort of stuff. So we open up with Superman, worse for wear, very bloody and torn up, and he says, oh my god, look at what you've done, and the whole city's destroyed. And then, boom, goes the whole city, and then the whole country, and then the whole planet of Earth seemingly explodes as he's blasted off to the moon. And there's some narrations going on that's just coming from later on in this book, but we see some weird, colorful circles grab hold of Superman and do something with him. So then we go back and we see Clark Kent as he's entering the Daily Planet. Lois is reading his mail, because of course she is, and he apparently got an invitation to the Infinity Corporation tonight at 7 o'clock. And she's like, oh, hey, this was on my desk because I stole your desk when you were out on assignment. I didn't read who it was to, but like, who's the Infinity Corporation? What's all this about? And he's like, I don't know, but I'm going to go check him out. She's like, well, then why'd you get an invite? He's like, But he says he's going to fly down there because it's super close to 7, and how is he going to make it in time? So we then go to a Supermax prison in Metropolis called the Maw that someone's being transferred out. We don't know who, and security's like, hold on, this isn't on the schedule. We got to call this in. And then the person transferring says, no, you don't. And they say, no, we don't. Continue on. And we see that whoever's doing it is named Jones. Mind control in Jones makes me think John Jones, but we'll see. And they get the patient out of there. So we cut over to Infinity Corporation, and Clark goes in as Superman. And she's like, oh, Superman, yes, we were expecting you. My name's Alexis. Could you come with me? And he's like, yeah, what is all this? And also, how do you know my secret identity? Because it turns out the invite that said Clark Kent on it, if you used his X-ray vision on it, there was a lead-lined Superman logo underneath the top layer. And he's like, it's clever, but like, for real, what do you do here? And she's like, oh, all in due time, all in due time. And he's like, I don't like that. I don't like that at all. You better start talking. She's like, okay, look, here's the thing. I'm going to bring you to my boss. His name is Vincent. He'll explain everything, hopefully. So just please try not to overreact when we get in there. And he's like, why would I overreact? And she's like, it's a lot. So as we enter the room, we see a huge pile of dead Supermen. And he's like, what in the hell is going on? And then Alexis is like, hold on, we're getting another one right now, and he might be alive. And we see this weird electrical impulse coming from these big rocks, and then poof, in comes another Superman, bloodied, beaten, and our Superman goes over and says like, oh, can you hear me? And Superman says, don't trust him. And then Superman dies. And we see Vincent is at the keyboard, and he's like, no, god damn it, we've gotten like 61 Supermen, and all of them have died before anything could be said. Like, this is bull. I hate this. And Alexis is like, hey, sir, we've got the actual Superman here. Maybe you could talk to him a little bit. And Superman's like, yeah, I'm going to need to know what's going on. And Vincent's like, okay, hi, Superman, I'm Vincent. Welcome to the Infinity Corporation. So we then cut back over to Jones. He's setting up whatever needs to be going on. A big green light, red light button on the I call it a sarcophagus. It's a big tomb-looking thing that the prisoner is in. And he's like, all right, it's deployed. Others should be here soon. I'm heading back. So we then go to the United Nations building, where Aquaman is apparently basically acting as a diplomat, just saying like, yes, everyone is now aware of Atlantis. You guys all want to have trade with us, but like, we don't need your tech, and we also would prefer to stay on our own. So be cool. And everyone's just like, not really. We'd like you to be more involved. And he's like, hey, okay, I got to go back to Atlantis. I'm being called. Sorry, we'll talk about this later. So he, there's a little bit more to that. He's trying to be diplomatic, but he does need to get back to Atlantis. So back to Superman. It turns out these big rocks that are floating around are called the Stones of Forever. And apparently they call themselves that because they talk to Vincent somehow, and Vincent refuses to elaborate what that means. So Superman's like, okay, why are they summoning dead versions of me? And he's like, oh, hey, look, you x-rayed me, I'm not an alien, a robot, anything like that. So you just, in simple terms, you die and then everything ends. And Superman's like, okay, I'm done with the games now. I really don't appreciate whatever this is going on. Please tell me what's going on. Alexis is just like, okay, sir, could you please just calm down? Like, Vincent, can you not be a dick for a minute? And he's basically like, look, the Forever Stones are special. Sometimes they teleport things through space, sometimes through time, and sometimes from other different timelines. That's where we're getting these bodies from. They are across numerous different timelines, and it seems like this is a fixed point, that no matter what happens, you're going to die, and then shortly thereafter, the timeline ends. Everything goes bye-bye. So that's a problem. And Superman's like, okay, so how can you know the future? Like, how do you know the timeline's disappearing? It's like, I don't, but the Rocks do. And it's like, okay, and the Rocks told you that? And he's like, yep, cool, great, that makes total sense. So they get a brief explanation of like how timeline works and blah, blah. Just nothing is fixed but except for this. That's why it's so weird that Superman's dying all this time, is that it's fixed that far out in the future. So it's like, yeah, we don't really know what's happening there. And Superman's like, okay, if you can't tell me anything except that I am definitely going to die, maybe, that's just true of everyone. Everyone's going to die. And he's just like, yeah, no, totally. We all are connected and whatnot, but you dying this way ends the universe. So you need to just not put yourself in danger so that we can avoid that. And he's like, I'm not going to stop being a hero. And then it's like, you selfish bastard. A whole planet's going to die if you just continue down the path you're continuing down. So please try to have a little bit of forethought there. So we go back over to where the sarcophagus thing was dropped off, and we see Green Lantern, Wonder Woman, Flash, and Batman have all received little invites that look incredibly similar to the Infinity Corporation stuff. And it says, come to this location at like 8 o'clock tonight. And all the three, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, and Flash, are all down in the depths, but Batman's up top and he's keeping Overwatch, and he's like, oh, hey guys, there's a big thing over there, we shouldn't go near that. And they're like, what? And then all of a sudden it activates and it starts draining out Green Lantern's ring, starts giving it energy. And it turns out that the thing inside of this sarcophagus is actually Parasite. So he feeds on the Green Lantern energy, and he's like, oh my god, that was fantastic, I love it, please give me more. So Batman kicks him in the face, but Flash runs in, tries to separate, just like, I'll run him around the world real quick. But of course, Parasite's now able to feed on Speed Force energy, and he's like, oh my god, that's fantastic. So he's growing bigger and bigger to the point where he's able to pick Flash up with just one hand and continue to drain more. Wonder Woman puts the lasso around him, tries to choke him out. He ends up dropping Flash, which puts Batman under some rubble. But then Wonder Woman ends up getting eaten by Parasite, and he's like, whoa, this is like some godlike power. What in the hell is that? I haven't even felt this from Superman before. So back in the lab, Superman gets a little hologram thing of like, oh, my friends are in trouble and they're not too far away from here. I will be back to talk more about this pile of dead me's. And he flies off, and Alexis is like, you should have told them everything. And he's like, oh, they can't possibly know the truth yet. They're not ready. So Superman comes in, saves Wonder Woman from inside a Parasite, but all of a sudden she's hearing voices screaming out in pain, and she's not able to really handle it for whatever reason. So it's really on Superman now, but before he can do anything, Green Lantern's like, I still got power in my ring, and he makes a bunch of constructs, starts shooting at Parasite. Parasite's just like, ow, that kind of mildly stings. We then go back down to Aquaman, who, I don't know, something about Olympus. It's this whole thing where there's someone waiting for him down there, and he's like, wait a minute, something about Olympus is going on? I'm friends with the god of war, isn't that enough? And then we see some mystery figure who says, I am a prophet. The true god of gods is coming. Be aware of that. So we see, as Green Lantern's trying to do his best to take out Parasite, Parasite's just getting stronger. He manages to grab hold of both Superman, Wonder Woman, and Green Lantern, and Flash, and Batman. All of them are caught up in Parasite's grip. And he's like, nah, this is great. I love this. Everything is fantastic now. So I was just skipping one page here. We go and we get Cyborg into the match. He manages to use his sonic cannon to blast all of them out of the hands and manages to get them free. So back inside Infinity Corporation, we see someone named Jane on security is like, oh, hey, I took care of it. I did what I needed to. Did Superman come? And she says, oh, I hate being in other people's minds. So it seems her name is Jane Jones, if this is the person from before. And then it's like, great, cool. Thanks for doing that. I'm going to go talk to my rocks. So, long story short with the Parasite fight, everyone's more or less out of it, but they are fighting around a power plant, and Batman and Cyborg get up and say, hey, Superman, you take care of the Parasite thing. We're going to go in and come up with a plan to drain him. Hal's been completely knocked out, so his ring activates a failsafe that wormholes him back to Oa. Flash is trying to run away as fast as possible, but he doesn't have the ability to stop for some reason, so he collides with Hal and also gets teleported to Oa. And so Wonder Woman's still out hearing voices, so it's just Superman now. Cyborg hooks into the power plant, reverses polarity, blah blah blah. He manages to connect Parasite in because Superman pushes him through the wall and drains him of all of his energy enough to power the entire national grid. And it's highly successful, and Parasite's drained, and it's like, great, cool, awesome. And Superman's like, hey, by the way, guys, why were you all here to begin with? And they're like, oh, because we all got invitations. And he's like, those invitations, look, god damn it, this is all Infinity Corp. All right, we need to go talk to that place. So once all the cops and stuff start arriving and they start dealing with that, they go off Infinity Corp. However, the building is gone. It's not there anymore. And they're like, what? Hey, Batman, you ever heard of Infinity Corp before? And he's like, no, and I've heard of everybody. So they figure out, let's go back to the Batcave, we'll take care of it. And then all of a sudden, there's shined a shiny light in the sky, and it's this giant-ass spaceship hovering over Metropolis. And everyone's like, is this something else? Is this something related? What are we doing here? And Superman's like, oh my god, it can't be. And all of the people hear a voice saying, be at peace, I mean you no harm, be not afraid. And all their phones say the same thing, all the TVs say the thing, and Superman's like, it's him, it's really him. And the big reveal on the final page is this godlike entity coming down with open arms saying that I am the great god Roux, and I've come to save you. For anyone unfamiliar, Roux is like the Kryptonian sun god. He's the big guy. Okay. I liked it. I'm not going to say I didn't. Like, it felt big. It felt like there was a lot going on. However, I do think that entire Parasite bit in the middle is kind of justifying the longer page length, rather than the page length being justified by, like, the story that should be happening. You know, the Parasites, like, I feel like this is 22 pages if you cut out the Parasite stuff. There's no reason for that to be here as of now. Maybe we'll get something later on where it really matters, but, like, this didn't feel like it needed to be very long, but they decided to anyway. So it's not bad. It is very well drawn. I think that it's a finely written issue. I just kind of worry about doing, I think it's 40 pages, maybe less, but it's close. I want to make sure that it justifies that page length. So yeah, I think this one's probably going to be a 7.5 from me. Room to improve, but definitely not a bad book. Robin, Son of Batman, #1, written and art by Patrick Gleason. So we open up with the sneak peek from the Convergence issues, which is set just a little bit further ahead of time. We get some Chinese monastery where Damian breaks in and he is like, hey, hi, you wouldn't know who I am, and don't worry about it, but I brought back these scrolls that I once took from your temple because I was a dick back then and I'm trying to atone. And then all of a sudden, some ninjas, seemingly League of Assassins, come in and try to attack, and Damian now has to protect this monk guy. So he fights back against, and he's like, you idiots, you fools, you're stupid. I am Damian, how dare you think you can beat me? And so he fights against them until finally some man-bats swoop in, and he's like, oh, okay, I see how it goes. So he's pushed over to the edge of a cliff, and he's like, you shouldn't back me into a corner, because then you'll never know what I do. And then he pulls out this little skull-looking whistle thing, blows on it, and then in the silhouette of the moon, we see a giant thing. He calls him Goliath. It's bat related. I think it's like I think they later on call it like a dragon bat or something like that. I don't know. Regardless, he comes in and he's just acting as the muscle. So he takes out a bunch of the man bats. Anybody who's left, Damien rides on the back of Goliath with his sword and starts cutting off wings. And he tells one last one, like, all right, fight or flight, what are you going to do? And Goliath gets right in the man bat's face, and the man bat just flies away. So he calms down Goliath, goes back over to the people, and he's like, anyway, yeah, as I was saying, here's this scroll. And they're like, the missing scroll, thank you so much. And he's like, no, don't thank me. This is atonement. This is my own thing. But they hand him like a big bowl of disgusting looking food, and he's like, oh, thank you, you're too kind. And we see watching off from the side is someone who is saying like, oh, Damien, you think that you can go out and do nice things, but you're still a dick. Nothing can atone for your year of blood. And we see that the person watching from off to the side is wearing the same mask as Nobody from the first arc of the New 52's Batman and Robin. So that's a thing. Anyway, first issue proper. We once again get a little... It's not a cut ahead, it's a now, but then everything else is told in flashback of some rich pompous king guy has Goliath chained up, and he's like, yes, your man-bat thing was eating my precious beloved cows, and you come to me without any sort of offering, therefore I'm going to kill your Goliath. And he keeps on calling him boy, and Damien's like, okay, I've been warning you throughout this whole thing. You call me boy one more time, I'm going to smack your head in. And he's like, oh yes, well, you are just a boy. Look at you. You flew in here, you crashed your plane, and now I will take you in as one of my own sons, and you clearly need a father figure, and that is what I will do for you. And while he's talking, he has this little beloved bird of paradise dancing around his head, and Goliath just eats it. He just snatches it right off his shoulder and swallows it. And he's immediately, the king's like, oh, you, how dare you? I am a king and I will be treated with respect, and I am all the, who do you think you are, boy? And then Robin goes over, closes the door, locks it, gets everybody else on the outside, and he's like, I'm Robin, son of Batman. And you just know he wants to just say bitch, but he punches the guy out and says, that's all you need to know. So we cut back to earlier on. Damien is doing some training stuff around the Batcave. He ends up falling down a hole, and he sees the skeleton of a bat that had died deeper down in the cave. So we see he gets up, gets out. Batman says, look, you're off tonight. Occasionally you got to have mandatory nights off. You can't be doing this every time. So here's an ice cream sundae Alfred made. And he's like, I don't want it. And he passes it off to his dog. And then all of a sudden he gets a call on his phone from someone, we'll get it later. I don't know if I'm supposed to be familiar with this character, saying, Lord Damien, Goliath is loose. So we then cut down to the Gotham Harbor, where the body of Nobody is, still wearing all of his tech stuff, including his mask. And we see someone swims down, activates the recording feature on the mask, sees what the last recording was, and it's Damien killing Nobody, aka Morgan Ducard. And so the person comes back up to the surface, and we see it's a young girl, who is holding the mask, and she's crying and says, Daddy. So apparently it's Ducard's daughter. And as the GCPD shows up to the docks, she puts on the mask, activates some sort of invisibility, and basically starts beating the ever-loving crap out of these cops. And they're like, oh, stop, who's there? And she's like, nobody. So we have Nobody 2.0 now. We then go over to Al Ghul Island, where Damien's coming in hot. He's talking to someone named Ravi and says, you had one job, just one job. And so he crash lands on the island, and as he gets out, he's talking to this Ravi person who I think is just supposed to be a general servant, but I'm not familiar with him. And he's basically like, oh, Lord Damien, Goliath, his cage. And he's like, I don't care about his cage. I just need the whistle. Where's the stupid whistle? And it's like, it's in the submarine down with the other Year of the Blood stuff. So We see Damien descends down into the submarine. He ends up getting Goliath's whistle, and there's this door, this vaulted door that's drawing his attention, and he looks scared to open it, and just as he's about to, Ravi calls up and says, you good? And he's like, yeah, I'm good, don't worry about it. So he gets up, he blows the whistle. It seems to enrage Goliath more, or just get him more, huge, and he says, Goliath, attack. So he's attacking a bunch of people. I'll be honest, I lost the plot here a little bit, but regardless, one of them says, oh, nice man bat. And he says, don't call him a man bat. And then Goliath manages to bust out of the building and fly high up into the sky to the point where Damien's no longer able to breathe. And he ends up falling off of Goliath's back. Goliath swoops down, grabs him, and Damien just mutters the word home. So we get a dream sequence. He's talking to Dick Grayson, basically saying, hey man, what was it like to die? What did you see on the other side? You said you saw nothing, but I bet you went to hell because you were not a good kid. And then Batman's up in a tree and he's just like, what have you done? What's the year of blood? Tell me, son. And he's like, what? No, I don't want to talk about that. So then we see that he's killed by Heretic again and his mother, and he's dragged down to hell, and this giant demonic version of Ra's al Ghul is like, yes, I prepared a good place for you, as he's dragged down into the lava and starts burning. And then he wakes up with a fright. He looks around. Goliath brought him back to Al Ghul Island, where he just previously was, and he's like, no, you idiot, I didn't want to go here. I wanted to go, whatever. And he looks around and he says, all right, I clearly have a little bit of a guilty conscience about my year of blood. And he explains that was a year where he was essentially most heavily groomed to become the next leader of the League of Assassins, and he had to commit God knows how many assassinations, and he had little trinkets for each of them, little trophies. And he's like, nope, I'm going to do something about it. So he goes down, he cracks open the vault, we see all the stuff inside, and he's like, all right, I am going to go and return all of this. I am going to make everything right. I'm going to atone however I can. That's what I'm doing now, because my future is not as the League of Assassins guy, is as Robin and a Wayne. So he asks Goliath where he should start. We see he picks up this thing called the Guardian. It looks like a Mayan with this little weird carved symbol in it, and he's like, all right, so be it. Let's go. Year of Atonement starts now. And we see off to the side, nobody is watching. And we get one final page off in Nanda Parbat. Talia al Ghul still has a memory loss ever since Damien was brought back to life, and so was she. And someone comes up and says, hey, you're Talia al Ghul. And she's like, I don't know who that is, but I remember screams when I kill people. But then she recognizes the face and she says, oh my God, the Luan Darga, risen from the pit. And we see she gets her head just bashed down into the ice of Nanda Parbat. And on the glove is the same symbol as the person, or as the Guardian thing that he just mentioned before. So I'm sure that'll all come back. It's solid. It's not exactly like a rock solid reasoning of, oh, I have to do this because it's villains or whatever else. No, it's literally just Damien feels guilty and he just wants to go fix this. Honestly, I think that's good character development. It's not him even admitting to the fact that he messed up and he regrets what he did. It's more so framed through the lens of, that's not who I am and I want to be stronger by letting it go. So yeah, it's a good book. I obviously associate Damien very heavily with Patrick Gleason's art, just because that's a lot of what I read of him in the New 52, so it's nice to be able to get it back here. Goliath, great companion. I hope we get a little bit more backstory on where the hell this guy came from, but I'm going to say this is I'll give it a 7.5. I really did like it, and I hope to see improvements as we continue. Wonder Woman number 41, written by Meredith Finch, art by David Finch. So this one does not have a sneak peek from Convergence, probably because issue 40 didn't come out until after Convergence ended. But we open up with, after everything that happened with Donna Troy, after everything in the previous arc, apparently what we were supposed to take out of that is Diana has found the balance. She realizes that being a queen, being a god, being a hero, all of those require different aspects to herself, and she is now started to strike that balance, understanding what is needed of her. And so now it is just her, Diana. And she is flying up to Mount Olympus. And she's like, yep, I've got Donna Troy imprisoned here. I'm still trying to reform her. I'm trying to find a path to cut through the lies that literally formed her and be able to find the good person underneath. So she goes and visits Donna. Donna's all curled up in her cell, and she's like, I get that you came here to put that lasso on me and get me to see the truth, but I swear to God, I'm really not in the mood right now. And she's just like, well, what are you in the mood for then? Because you're just kind of sitting here looking all pissed off and self-loathing. And she's like, yeah, that's who I am. I am a monster. And Diana's like, no, you're misguided, you're self-indulgent, but you are not a monster. And she's like, I bathed in the blood of innocence. Like, that's pretty monstrous. And Diana goes, yeah, you've done terrible things, but that doesn't define who you are for the rest of your life. So come to terms with that. I'll be back some other time. So she flies off. We go up to the Pool of the Gods, which I guess is just a location here. And we actually meet up with Zola and Zeke from the previous writer by Azzarello. And they're just chilling by the pool. And Zola's like, hey, Wonder Woman, long time no see. I've been like, check it out. My kid's almost like 1 now. He's growing up. He's not, really talking much yet, but hey, it's something. And she's like, oh yeah, no, I'll try to get here more often. And she's like, no, don't worry about it. Like, I just, I don't have a lot of company here amongst the gods, being immortal and all that. So Wonder Woman picks up Zeke and she's just like, oh yeah, well, hopefully he can grow up and know the kind of unconditional love and acceptance that we'll, of course, give him. And Hera comes in saying like, yeah, no, unconditional love was not one of Zeus's downsides, except for the fact that he gave it to way too many women all the time. And Zeke reaches out for Hera and just like, well, it seems like he's only giving it up for the right women now. And Hera's like, yeah, all right. Gives him a little kiss on the forehead. And Zeke's returned to his mother as Wonder Woman talks to Hera, and Hera's just like, hey, have you seen that Donna Troy woman that you put in here recently? She is like crazy angry. She's so violent and whatnot. She's just waiting for a spark to set it all off. And Diana's like, I'm working with her. She's, me and her went through some similar things where we thought our life was one thing, but it turned out to be something else. And Hera's like, yeah, but like you thought you were made of clay. She actually is. And if there's one thing I know about clay is that once it hardens, you can't really mold it again unless you break it first. Diana's like, okay, I get the metaphor, but all right. So she goes down and visits Hephaestus, which of course, all of his helpers are now Amazonians who have betrayed Diana and went around killing their brethren. We don't actually meet with any of them, but we see them working around the place. And Hephaestus is just like, oh yeah, I really love having labor here that absolutely does not want to be here. It makes my job so much easier. And Diana's like, I know, I get it. It's a punishment, but like, are they at least doing what they need to do? And so it's like, yeah, I mean, they came in here with pride and egos and all that, being warrior princesses, but I broke that down pretty quick in a 2,000-degree furnace. So they go down in Hephaestus's thing, and it turns out that Wonder Woman requested a new set of armor. And she's like, yeah, I went into this, I was a girl, I didn't know anything else. I was a princess, not even a queen. Now I'm a queen, I'm a god, I'm all these things. I need to let the girlish ways go and become the woman I truly am. And so she loses the cut off booty shorts and gets full pants along with big ass boots and whole new armor set, basically covered head to toe. And she says, I will embrace the woman I become. So as she's flying back home, she hears over the watchtower satellite stuff that apparently there's a guy who's threatening to blow himself up on a bridge unless he gets to meet Wonder Woman. And Wonder Woman goes and talks to a cop and says like, hey, I'm willing to go talk to the kid. I really don't mind. And he's like, you shouldn't, because like if you give in to one of the crazies, all the other crazies are going to start coming out of the woodwork. And she's like, okay, fair enough, but like I can't risk that. I need to go talk to this guy. So she goes out on the bridge and he's tip-tapping away on a computer. He also makes the point of saying like, yeah, just podcasts and these kids with their tickety-tocks and whatnots. So she sees that there's a bomb and he's typing away on the computer and she's like, hey, I heard you were looking for me. What's going on? And he doesn't respond. So she moves forward, puts a hand on his shoulder, and he's like, Wonder Woman, you have no idea how much I've looked forward to meeting you. And he sprays her with some mace and hits her in the face and immediately starts kicking and punching. And he's like, I didn't think it would be this easy. I'm disappointed. You're not much of a Wonder Woman at all. She's just laying on the ground and she's like, look, I didn't expect that, but don't mistake me not putting up a fight for me not having the ability to put up a fight. I just don't want to punch you out. And she kicks him in the face and just like, yeah, I don't really want to beat up a kid who's troubled. And he's throwing more punches, and she's like, hey, look, I get it. Everyone deserves a little attention now and then, but this is not how you solve your problems. And she literally just like, there are better ways to get ahead. Let me help you in this world. And he's just like, oh, God, for the God of War, you sure do talk too much. And he punches her in the face and dives off the bridge into the water below. And she's like, how the hell did he know I was God of War? So we follow this guy as he's back in town, walks down a alleyway, and it's just like, God, she's so pretentious, so self-centered, like so self-righteous, thinking, oh, there are better ways to do this. Fighting isn't always the answer. Jesus Christ, man. She's the God of War. Someone else should be afraid, or someone else should have that, someone who's not afraid to use those powers. And he enters into this room that has this big glowing pool of mystical green liquid, and the pool says, like, you have someone in mind, and she's just like, ah, yeah, very funny. Anyway, you gonna help me or what? And the pool's like, oh, well, what did you think of our little goddess? And she's like, she's disgustingly naive, and someone else should have the power and be able to use it properly. And she's like, yep, we agree. So here you go. If you want to become God of War, there's only one thing you need: a baller-ass weapon that can kill a god. And out from the pool comes a black Pegasus with a whole bunch of bows and arrows. So what does that mean? I don't know. No, I mean, it's a good enough setup for the first arc. It does feel kind of housekeeping-ish, like just a reminder of here's where all the pieces are, despite the fact that we just had issue 40 that set those pieces in just 2 weeks ago. And then the costume change also took up like a page or two. So collectively, in terms of forward motion, it really is only like 4 pages right there at the very end. Not a whole lot, but it's not bad. It's not a bad issue. I think it does a good job of setting the current mindset, where the previous arc was very, I don't want to say downer, but very out of control. This one feels like she has a lot more control on things, but there, of course, is that element of confusion where this rando shows up and seemingly knows a lot about her. So, yeah, it's got potential. I think this one's probably just a 7 for me, but I'm looking forward to seeing what can come out of this. And I do like the new costume. I think it is a great shake-up here, and I like looking at it. So, yeah, 7. Harley Quinn Power Girl #1, written by Amanda Conner, Jimmy Palmiotti, and Justin Gray, art by Stéphane Roux. So, back of the trade literally has the explanation of what this series is, and they said back in Harley Quinn #12, there was like a 2-panel sequence where Harley and Power Girl went through a teleportation ring, and they came out wearing like wedding gear and all this other stuff. This is that story of like the stuff that happened in between there. So we get the panels, or at least redrawn versions of the panels, them going through the teleportation ring. And then a whole bunch of captions explain the backstory. I don't want to go that deep into it, but Power Girl has amnesia. Harley Quinn is kind of just convincing her that she's her sidekick, and they're going on some super-powered adventure. So they come out on this strange-looking moon in some other galaxy, possibly universe, and they come across who appears to be Mr. Mind, the evil caterpillar villain from Shazam books, and Harley comes out and it just pukes all over Mr. Mind, and that is literally the extent of that. So they're on this planet with a bunch of wreckage. They start exploring it, trying to find another teleportation ring. That's the big thing that they're looking for to get home. As they come across this very disgusting looking, almost Yoda type thing, who starts hitting on them and saying how he is lonely and how sexy they are, and apparently he is the exiled sexy prince of Valoron. And they're just like, yeah, okay, do you know where we can find a teleportation ring? And it's like, nope, but I can point you in the direction of a party. And when they turn down his advances, he sicks this giant hydra that he has at them. So Harley loves it. She thinks it's great. Power Girl starts fighting against it. She gets swallowed by the Hydra, and so Harley starts banging on the back of its head, trying to get it to throw up. Power Girl just busts out through its neck, and that pretty much takes it out. But as they're still struggling a little bit, Harley goes to a bunker that this weird little gremlin dude has and pulls out a bunch of guns, and she starts unloading with rocket launchers and all this other crazy stuff to take it out. One of the rockets goes haywire, blasts Power Girl across to this big metal skull thing in the middle of this weird forest. I don't know how much of the audience is going to be familiar with the movie Zardoz, but this is entirely a pastiche of the movie Zardoz. I don't think it'll be important, just know it's happening. So this thing does a scan of Harley and Power Girl. It says, okay, random human girl, and also, oh, hey, Power Girl, welcome back. Welcome to your love nest. And they go inside, and there's like lava lamps from the ceiling and all, like, it just looks like a bachelor pad sort of thing going on. And Harley's like detecting the scent, the fragrance in the air, and she's very good at it. And they say, oh yes, that was Lord Vartox's favorite cologne back when he visited Earth in 1974. And they're like, who the hell is Lord Vartox? So then the skull takes off and starts flying to where Vartox is. We cut to the moon of Lustox that is now overrun by some alien creature named Oreth Odiox, who hates that this planet had free love and was this, bizarre fetish for alien culture to form the mindset of their world. And it seems that he has this Vartox guy imprisoned, and he says, oh, one day I'll escape this machine and get my groove back, Oreth. So the skull's flying over the sky. They talk about the previous adventure they had of Manos and his pizza, because that was a thing. And then all of a sudden they start getting shot down out of the air. So as they crash down, we see that an alien approaches them named Mozit Blackhead, and he's got bad skin. That's the joke. And he says, hey, wait a minute, hold on. You're breaking all of our cultural laws regarding improperly being dressed. You're wearing tights. Like, what the hell is Power Girl's cleavage doing there? I suspect you are committing prostitution. And Harley pulls a gun out of nowhere and blows Mozit's head off. And Power Girl's like, what the hell, man? I thought that we discussed you will not be killing people. And she's like, I didn't realize this tiny gun would be able to kill him. Also, he said nasty things about us. So as they're arguing, Power Girl gets shot in the back by some energy cannon or something. She immediately starts fighting back against whoever it was that fires. Once she's done, she takes the gun away from Harley and crushes it, and she's like, all right, let's go get Vartox. And then all of a sudden, a bunch of people are like, wait a minute, Power Girl, oh my god, you're back. And they keep on asking how she could be here, and they reference something about, I literally just need to say the line here whenever we get to it. Something, there was a contraceptive bomb that sterilized their people and also took out all the androids that got hit in the first attack. They think she's an android. She's like, no, hey, look, I am aware of the multiverse. I know that because I'm the sole survivor of my planet, and also there was a whole Earth 2 thing. She literally says there was a whole Earth 2 thing, and she's like, yeah, so I'm sure I'm just a different version of the Power Girl that you guys experienced. And they're like, oh, okay, I guess. Anyway, yeah, Lord Vartox has a teleportation ring if that's what you're looking for. And they're like, yeah, totally, where is he? And they say, oh, he's taken by onto the Lust Moon, Lustox with Oriox or whatever like that. And as they're explaining this, a bunch of drones come down. They start getting ready to fight, and as they all start surrounding, we see that it's more than just a few. It's like 100, and they don't know how they're gonna fight against that, and that's the whole issue. Okay, do I need this story? No. Are they going to do it anyway? Yeah, of course. Why not? They literally said they were going to do this beforehand. It's just more of what Harley Quinn is. I don't know what more to say. It's by the same writers. It's the same artist that was even on that arc. Like, nothing here is anything to be like, oh, wow, I really didn't expect this from a Harley Quinn book. Like, yeah, it's another Harley Quinn book. Because Harley, by the time that we're done with DCU, is going to have like 4 concurrent running books. So yeah, I don't know. If it's your speed, it's your speed. For me, it's just as strange, just as out there, and just as much not doing much for me. So I think I'm going to say this is a 6? Sounds right? I don't know. It's not a bad book, but it's just eh. Black Canary #1, written by Brendan Fletcher, art by Annie Wu. So Brendan Fletcher was or still is a co-writer on Batgirl, and this is kind of spinning out of that in so much as Black Canary was in that book and kind of mentioned that she was off doing this thing. So, much like all the other books, we have a sneak peek that was in a Convergence issue, and a bunch of people are hanging outside a Black Canary concert saying how pissed off they are and how they're not going to let him escape. And we see that a bunch of them have been beaten up to hell for whatever reason. And as Black Canary and her band arrive outside the backstage door, they say, all right, you're going to pay. And we see that the band is told to go inside, start tuning up. And it's like, okay, well, we're on set on 10, so get this figured out. So they go in and Black Canary's like, all right, everybody, what do you want? And some people are complaining about how they stole their opening act, how they killed an expensive new PA system, how one of them skimped out on paying the cover price at the door. And he's just like, what, that's it? Okay, here you go. Here, that covers the cover price. We good? Everybody good? So someone charges after. They start attacking Black Canary. She starts dodging, throwing punches back, doing whatever, full-on martial arts, until finally this big old dude with literally like a guitar in the form of a mallet comes up and says, you broke my bass player's heart. His name is Alex Wells, and he canceled the last 4 gigs because you didn't call him back or whatever. And she's like, what? Oh, I mean, yeah, I could just call him back now, whatever. And as she's looking at her phone, he swings the mallet and just bushes her up all the way on top of the building. He then jumps up afterwards. She hears through a skylight that their band's being introduced, and she's like, all right, I really don't have time for this, so sorry. And she unleashes her Black Canary power, which is strong enough to bash this guy in through the skylight. He falls down onto the stage, and Canary lands down on top of him and immediately says, like, tell Alex I'm sorry. Picks up a mic, turns to the crowd, and just says, hey, y'all, ready for the show? And they're like, we love you! So that begins the show. And we get one cut over to some mysterious business people-looking types as they're looking at a Black Canary poster, because that's the name of the band. It's Black Canary. And apparently they found what they were looking for. They finally have found her, and they will eliminate the others. So, main series, we get a news page that basically says, Black Canary is a great band, and they're going on tour, but, like, their lead singer, who goes by the name of DD, just cannot stop beating the ever-loving crap out of people, and it's starting to become a problem. So we see her going around, goes out up on stage, and is just putting on a big show. Backstage, we see, not backstage, after the show, we see Heathcliff, who I think was also a character in Batgirl, is acting as kind of like a manager / merch guy. And he's trying to get money out of the owner of the venue. And the venue's just like, she ruined our entire place. Like, there's no way I'm paying you guys. In fact, you should be paying us for damages. And Heathcliff's like, we did have a contract. But we get a flashback to what Black Canary did. And it turns out she was just beating up a bunch of creeps who were, like, really acting predatorial towards other women there. And Heathcliff explains that and just like, that could have opened you up to a lawsuit. You should be thanking her. And then the venue owner sees Black Canary coming in the door, and he's like, you know what? Yep, absolutely. Here's your money. Please leave. Don't come back. So at that point, Black Canary's like, all right, come on, let's go. So they all hop on the bus, and we see that the rest of the band consists of the, I think, guitarist named Paloma. We got the drummer, who I know has a name, but I don't think they say it up top here. So Byron, there it is. And a guitarist named Ditto. And Ditto's like this young girl who doesn't speak at all. And Byron's like, hey, yeah, look, this is a dream come true. We got signed by a label. We got this first album. We're going out on tour for it. But, like, it's not going to work out if you keep beating up people. Like, we got to calm that down. I don't know why you keep on doing that. She's like, oh, yeah, I was just, trying to make things right. And she's like, I get it. But you can't save the world, okay? You gotta just focus on the music here. And we see some video clips of her going out doing like all this crazy stuff, as well as an interview where she doesn't reveal anything about herself, not even what DD stands for. But at one point, the interviewer's like, oh, and we've heard rumors that you've been buried before. And she's like, what? What do you mean married? And that's where Byron jumps in and controls the interview. So She does reveal a little bit of her past, saying how she has a sensei and how the sensei always says seek pacts of nonviolence, and Byron's like, that's so cool. All right, let's do that. So she explains, yeah, all right, I'll try to hold back. I'll try to keep it cool. So they arrive at their next location. We see that the businessmen are watching from a nearby rooftop, and they're like, yes, we see her. Now we just have to wait. We have to do all this because if we approach prematurely, she may react violently. And as they're doing a mic check, getting all set up, we see Paloma is not happy with Dinah, is very much just like, yeah, well, you're just going to ruin things again. But as they're doing the mic check, Ditto plays something on the guitar, and Dinah's blown away at Ditto's skill. Just like, how do you do that? He's genuinely incredible. You have real talent here for being as young as you are. So that night we see she's about to go out on stage. She approaches Heathcliff. And Heathcliff's like, hey, look, I just always get this vibe that you don't really like me. Are we cool? Like, are you okay? And she's like, yeah, no, it has nothing to do with you. I've just got my own stuff going on. And she's like, do you really want to be doing this? And she's like, I signed a contract. I'm going to get paid at the end of it, and then I'll be able to open up my dojo and all that stuff. And that's really what I want to do. And he's like, okay, well, do you even like doing this, though? And she doesn't answer. She goes out on stage, and she performs the show. We see a review written where it's like, this was the best show yet. She sang these songs without immediately beating anybody up, but then something happened around the 5th song. And we see that the business people are out in the audience, and as these waves of sound emanate from Ditto's guitar, they reveal these business people as these horrific black inky forms. And immediately Dinah's like, hey, is anyone else seeing that? Okay, well, that's it for our show, everybody. Good night. Please get out of here immediately. Run. And we see that the inky types start attacking the stage, so Dinah has to use her violence, start fighting them off. As everyone else starts running, scrambling out, it's honestly just 3 to 4 solid pages of great action work and layouts and all that. Really keeps the momentum going. And as she's out of room, she's like, God, okay, look, I'm sorry. And she has to use her canary cry to basically cause the roof to literally come down and land on top of these guys. And they're just like, what do you want? Do you think I'm Justice League? I literally have only ever done one mission for them. It's not a big deal. And the creatures point up to the stage towards Ditto and say, he will come for her. He knows. And when he does, you all will die. And they look at Ditto like, kid, who are you, man? So the creatures go back up into the sky. They literally slurp their way out. And we get a thing afterwards as the whole band convenes. And Canary's like, look, I can protect Ditto. I can't say the same for any of you. You all should leave now. I'm going to take Ditto to a safe place, and everything will be okay. And Byron's just like, what? No, like, where are you going to go? You're penniless. You don't have anything going on there. Those were monsters. They were coming after one of our teammates. We're going to stick together. We're going to stay in this. And Paloma's like, do I have a say in any of this? You're kind of just speaking for me. And there's like, no, we're going to stay here. We're going to do this together. And I'm not going to let you split up this band. We're going to keep doing that. And Canary's like, okay, fine. But if we're going to be doing that, you all are going to get training. First thing in the morning, hand to hand, and then weapons afterwards. And everyone's like, okay. So final page is a little bit of a teaser. They're back on the bus, and the shadow creatures are tagged onto the back. So yeah, that's that. Honestly, if I can make a comparison, it's Scott Pilgrim. I'm not going to say it is good or bad in that comparison. I personally enjoy it, but if you do like Scott Pilgrim, I think you'd like this. If you don't, probably the same. Beyond that, it's I think it's got, like I said, 3 to 4 pages of action in there. No dialogue, just following like the flow of things. It really does work. Andy Roux's got a great job of keeping that momentum going. So I think overall this one's probably going to hit me at, I'll go with the 8. I'll say it gets up to that level. I think this one shows a lot of promise, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it manages to pay itself off. So here we go. Superman Wonder Woman number 18, written by Peter Tomasi, art by Doug Mahnke. So this one has a sneak peek from Convergence, but this trade specifically notes that the sequence is essentially redone in a way that makes sense to the story as it turns out in issue number 22. So I'll say what it is, but just know it is different than what we'll eventually get. We get a teleportation into the Watchtower And we just see a trail of bloody footprints as we see that the software does not recognize whoever teleported in, and it needs vocal confirmation. It's Clark. He's bloodied. He's bleeding all over the place. And he says his name to get the security shut off. Flash comes in just being like, hey, buddy, I didn't realize, Jesus Christ, is that all your blood? What is going on with you? And he's just like, hey, I need one of the shuttles. And Flash is like, you need a doctor, man. And he's like, no, I need more than a doctor, Flash. So Flash rushes him over to the other teleporters and says, like, look, these will teleport you right down to Star Labs, and we'll get Cyborg's dad to patch you up, all that stuff. You're good, buddy. And Superman is just like, I'm really sorry, Flash. And then he sucker punches him and says like, yeah, you would have seen it coming otherwise. So he goes over to the watchtower, big round table, and he gets his bloody hands all over his seat and just kind of rests for a second before walking his way over to the shuttles. He hops in one, starts flying off, and it turns out Diana's also in one, saying like, hey, Clark, what you doing, man? And just like, oh, I'm flying directly into the heart of the sun. I need it. I got to get in there. Please do not follow me. Don't risk your own life. And she's like, you'd follow me and I'm going to follow you. So as he's about to pass out from the sheer intensity of it, because remind you, this is depowered Superman. He's not doing so hot. Wonder Woman's like, all right, well, I've got the teleportation locked. It's going to teleport us out of here just before everything goes wrong. And she teleports first into his ship and is ready to teleport out. And he's like, I told you not to. And just like, oh, just close your eyes, just kiss me. And he says, Diana, I don't love you anymore. And that's where the sneak peek ends. But of course, that's issue 22. So we cut back to issue 18. We get a little recap of like, yeah, you know, Wonder Woman, Superman, they got together. Superman lost his powers and now he's a little bit more mortal. So they're lying into bed together. Superman's asleep, and Wonder Woman's just looking at him, just like, you know, he's gone through so much. I'm never going to let any harm come to him. That's how much I love him. I'm always going to be here for him. And his phone starts going off. It's 3 a.m. and she's like, hey, it's a Smallville area code. I think you should answer this. And he picks up, and it's Lana. And Lana says, hey, she's quiet, she's hushed, and she's panicked. Something's in my house. Someone's here. They've done something to John. And then click, call ended. And Superman's like, okay, we got to get to Smallville and we got to get there now. And Diana was wearing Clark's Superman shirt, so she takes it off, hands it to him, saying, hey, as long as one of us can fly, both of us can. So she flies reasonably fast over towards Smallville, but not at top speed. And Superman's like, no, we got to go faster. And she's like, you don't exactly have super lungs or anything anymore. Are you sure you can handle the pressure? And he's like, it doesn't matter. I can't let her down again. And as they start picking up speed, Diana's like, won't let who down again? Who was that on the phone? And he's like, oh, it's Lana. She knew about my powers ever since I was a kid. And then Superman Doomed happened and her parents end up dying because of it. I really have let her down significantly over time. And Diana's like, well, I look forward to meeting her. So they get to Lana's parents' house, and they've been looking around for like 15 minutes, but they can't find any sign of a struggle, anything at all going on. It seems like she was never even here. And it's just like, okay, well, I mean, Steele was here because they're dating. Surely that he would put up some sort of a fight. There's no reason he would go down without it. I don't know. It seems like it's all just a bit too nice and everything else here. And Superman slams his fist in the wall, and Diana's like, hey, it's okay. We'll find them. Let's go into Smallville and we'll get some more intel. And Superman's like, all right, but we got to like go undercover. I don't want to draw attention to us. So they put on some flannel and some baseball hats, and they go to the local barber shop where there's always 3 guys sitting out front who always know all the gossip. And as they walk up, they're just like, oh, hey, Clark, who's your lady friend? It's like, oh, this is Diana. Sorry I haven't been around recently. And it's like, yeah, well, you know, we figured ever since you came out as, you know, Superman. And, you know, don't worry, we don't have any bad opinions of you here. We always knew you had a kind heart and you always were helping out. Like, that was obvious from when you were a kid. However, it kind of makes sense why Smallville has been going through so many bad things recently with Doomsday and Brainiac and Ultra Humanite. Maybe just, like, leave. Like, nothing against you, but trouble does seem to follow you, so maybe just, like, leave Smallville alone for a while. And he's like, yeah, no, look, I get it, I understand. However, what's going on? And there's like, well, a bunch of people have been disappearing in town. Like, there's only 2 of us here in front of the barbershop. There are usually 3. He's been disappearing. We don't know where like a local school teacher went to. It's disappearances, but we'll handle it. We'll do our own thing. There's no reason to suspect ultra foul play or anything like that. Oh, by the way, I found your family's mailbox just in the middle of my yard the other day, so here you go. And Superman's like, okay, thanks for all of that. And immediately he's like, all right, well, screw the undercover stuff. We got to go in loud and proud. And Diana's like, oh, hell yeah. So they rip off the flannel. They're in their costumes. And they make their way out to the Kent farm to see what happened there. Turns out someone literally dug up the entire Kent farm, barn, house, all of it, like foundations all the way up. And he's just like, oh my God, they took my parents home, everything. It's like my family was never here. And if they hit up this place, we got to check the other one. And they start jumping their way across to the old rundown forgotten farm of the paternal grandparents of Clark Kent, so his father's parents, and their farm has also been completely ripped up. Meanwhile, we see somebody's watching surveillance footage, keeping an eye on both of Wonder Woman and Superman, calls in a protocol that requires executive orders and blah, blah, blah. It's some big thing. So Superman looks around the farm and he's like, look, they dug up all this stuff. It's all gone. However, they didn't notice his bomb shelter. And so he pulls that up. It was buried under a ton of dirt. And he's like, yeah, I used to come and hide here when my powers were developing. It was a place that I could feel safe. And one day Lana found me down here and she convinced me to come out. And she was the first person my age who told me that it was okay to be different. And that's something I really needed to hear. And I thought for a second she might actually be here, but when I didn't see footprints, I realized, and then all of a sudden he comes to a realization like, crap, they didn't stop at this. And they go to the local graveyard, and every headstone in this place that has the name Kent on it is dug up and taken away. And he's like, this is too much. This is like, my parents alone would be too much, but my entire like lineage, it's like they were trying to erase all the Kents from Kansas. All because of me, all because I'm Superman. This sucks. I hate this. And he yells up the sky like, what are you waiting for? And then all of a sudden they start getting fired upon. And we see standing amongst the headstones opposite them is the Suicide Squad. And they say, hey, yeah, we're here. You wanted us, here we are. And Superman and Wonder Woman just look so pissed off, and they say, you are in the wrong place at the wrong time. So once again, another book crosses over with Suicide Squad, because Suicide Squad is the easiest book to cross over with. You just say, yep, this is part of them being villains, and I have expressed before how I think a Suicide Squad crossover is typically the laziest idea. Maybe there's something more here, because they were talking about like government stuff, of how they think there's some shadow government agency, but you don't have to bring the Suicide Squad in. It's unnecessary. It has never once been a required feat. Beyond that, I mean, sneak peek notwithstanding, I think I'm a little torn on this issue. The sneak peek was good. I like that. But like, this kind of just strikes me as the same thing that was going on over in Action Comics. Like, there was the whole thing of Ultra Humanite, I think it was, who was like abducting people, and then before that we had Doomsday, and they were abducting people from Smallville, and now we get the same sort of thing where, oh, something happened to Lana, which happened in both of those stories, and it just feels like the same thing again. Maybe we'll go a totally different route with it. I mean, Suicide Squad didn't show up in those books, but I don't know. I feel like between all those stories, we should just stay out of Smallville for a while. But here we are. So in terms of what I think of it, first half I really liked. First half with like Wonder Woman and like just trying to take care of Clark, seeing that he's powerless now, gives a different dynamic there. I'm going to say collectively it's going to come down to a 7 for me, but just know that the front half is stronger than that and the back half is weaker. So whatever you want to call that, it's a 7. Dr. Fate #1, written by Paul Levitz, art by Sonny, Liew. We open up with a sneak peek, which is really just chapter 0. We are at Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, And it is a downpour for the ages. There is significant flooding. We see some dogs are running about, tearing up clothes, just howling up at things. And as they run past a window, we meet the Nasur family, which consists of Khalid, the son, the father is Muhammad, and the mother is not named immediately, but I'm sure she has a name somewhere in there. So we see the cat is reacting to the dogs outside. The cat's name is Puck, and because of the downpour going on, the family's just kind of talking. They're staying indoors for the moment, and Khalid is in training to become a doctor. He is in medical school. The father was a doctor back in Egypt, but when they emigrated over to the United States, he wasn't allowed to practice here, and now he is stuck as a cab driver. And they're very focused on making sure Khalid finishes medical school and becomes a doctor. It's important. So at some point, as the doctor's going out, or as Muhammad's going out to start his cab stuff, Khalid wants a ride to go meet up with his girlfriend Shaya. I'm going to say Shaya, might be Shaya. He's like, oh, that girl, she makes you crazy. You're going out in this sort of range. Just like, yeah, well, we don't get a lot of time to meet up because we're both in medical school. So they have to go pick up the cab, which is parked down by the riverside. And as they switch out for the cab, we see this hairless dog is watching them go past. And the dog starts talking to Puck the cat, which has also snuck out and followed them. And they start speaking of biblical prophecies and end times and stuff like that, of how the flood comes and will wash away all of humanity and all of their world and whatnot. And we see that the dog is saying, yes, I will, the Maat, the M-A-A-T, which is apparently the order of things, will be restored and the world will drown. And we see that the hairless dog is essentially Anubis, whereas the cat represents some other god that doesn't want that to happen. So it says, oh, well, perhaps I will decide some other way. So we see Khalid walking with Shaya through a park. The rain's starting to let up slightly, and he's just like, oh, look at that. Hanging out with you manages to let up the rain. But in doing so, she's basically like, yeah, well, it was fun, but I already have to get back in. I've got a million things to do before our classes start. And she's going to take the subway, but ultimately it's flooded, so she has to take a cab, and he's left walking on his own, just like, oh yeah, rain's already starting to come down again. This sucks. I'm not even able to spend any time with my girlfriend, and I literally, I'm just not happy with where I'm at. And he looks out and he sees his cat on the subway station. He's unfazed by this. He's like, oh, what, you snuck out? That's crazy. I can't get any signal, though, but hey, look, we're next to a museum. Maybe I can get a gift for Shaya, and that'll at least make this whole trip somewhat worth it. So he goes in the museum, tries to head towards the gift shop, and before he can make it back there, he's called out to by a statue holding the helmet of fate, saying, Khalid Nasur, your time is upon you. So that's all the sneak peek. That's chapter 0. First issue picks up. The dog of Anubis is looking out, saying the flood is coming. The order will be restored. You will all be my slaves in the house of the dead. And he's like growling at drivers as he's walking on the flood water while everyone else is like waist deep up into it. But he looks out and he sees a lightning bolt strike the museum. And he says, oh, Bastet would not dare. So we cut back in the museum. Khalid's being offered the helmet and just being like, oh, you must accept your fate. And Khalid's like, I must have been dosed or something like that. This is crazy. I'm not a pharaoh. I'm just an American. You're a hallucination. So he runs out. Puck is like, well, he's still a kid. He doesn't know what he's doing yet. He's not wise or whatever, but we need a pharaoh. I am an older god who is not worshipped anymore, so I don't have the power to do any of this stuff, and none of the other gods do, but this boy is the only one who can save us from Anubis. So we see he gets to a subway station that isn't flooded. He's texting Shaya like, hey, did you dose me or something? And she's like, no, you're way too uptight for that. I would never do that. I was like, cool. A statue at the museum just talked to me. Straight out on Night at the Museum, but in the daytime. She's like, I never saw that movie. Doesn't it suck? Like, why are we talking about this? And she's kind of just blowing him off, just like, oh, hey, look, you sober up and when class starts, and I've picked up our doctor's whites, so got that. Anyway, I need to make a call. Bye. And so she hangs up. The mom immediately calls and says, hey, the mayor's called in. They might be evacuating like the whole town. The rain's getting too crazy. It's worse than Sandy. You got to get out of there. And he's just like, Mom, it's just the news. They're hyping stuff up. Don't worry about it. I'll be back home soon. She's like, all right, whatever. But then she looks over and sees Puck the cat and is like, you were outside, but you don't have a drop on you. How did you do that? And Puck just slinks away without saying a word. We then get Muhammad in the cab trying to get to JFK airport for this guy just yelling in the back like, my plane leaves in 90 minutes. And he's like, it's all flooded. I don't know what you want me to do, but I will do my best. And we see him going down flooded streets trying to get there. We go down to the subway where Khalid's just waiting for the train to show up, and it suddenly everyone starts freaking out. Kid is falling down onto the tracks. He looks down, sees the train rumbling. It's going to be on its way soon, but he doesn't second guess. He jumps down on the tracks, picks up the girl, hands it to the mom. And before he realizes it, the train's basically upon him, and there's nothing he can do, but he puts out his hands and yells, stop, and then all of a sudden, some magical thing happens, and the train just stops right in front of him. And everyone looks on, and they're like, okay, kid, are you all right? We can get you an ambulance, take you to the hospital. And he's like, no, I'm good. I just gotta go. I gotta go now. And so he just runs back up to the surface. And he's like, this is too weird. And when he gets up there, Puck is waiting and just like, accept your fate, Khalid. And Khalid's like, okay, all right, whatever. So we cut back to Anubis and we see him just walking. He's getting more powerful, more angry. There's a tree that's blocking his path because of all the wind. He just, in his dog form, picks it up, throws it up on top of a nearby roof. So obviously he's getting stronger. We see Khalid follows Puck back to the museum. And he's just like, I swear to God, I'm hallucinating that my cat is talking to me. He's like, no, you're seeing the world for as it truly is. And as they approach the museum, it's closed, it's locked, the museum's closed for the day, but somehow it just opens up and Khalid is able to walk inside behind Puck. And so he starts trying to record it with his phone, but the phone is showing that the door is still closed as well. And he's like, okay, I guess my phone doesn't believe me because I don't even believe me. So they make it back to the statue. And Puck basically explains, like, look, you are a child of the blood. I have watched over you up until this moment. None of the other gods from back then are strong enough to stand up to Anubis, the jackal. It's trying to change the order of things and make the world as it wants it to be. In order to save all of humanity, save the entire world, you need to accept your fate and take this power. And he picks up the helmet of fate and says, now, let it be known there is a price for power. I will pay that price for now. I will shoulder that on myself, but you will be paying as well. Make that known. And he slips on the helmet and becomes fate. And we see Puck immediately, being one of the gods, is like, all right, my time is at an end. I had to sacrifice myself to give you this power, but it was well worth it. Farewell. And we see it turns into a god and ascends into the heavens or whatnot. And Fate's just looking around. He sees everything is different now. Like he compares it to a vivisection back in medical school of seeing the underlying, what's under the skin. There's something just underneath reality that he's seeing now. And as he speaks, he recognizes that his own voice is different. It's deeper, it's stronger, and it is talking to him as well, not just him talking. And he flies out of the museum. He ends up on top of some giant arc. I'm sure it's in Brooklyn somewhere, but I don't know what it is. And he's like, okay, either I'm tripping or like, how do I get down from here? So we then go over to Muhammad as he's driving his cab through the flooded streets. He gets ambushed by a pack of dogs that are standing in the middle of the road. He slams on the brakes. All of a sudden, a tree comes down, crashes right on top of the cab, and we see he is left bloodied and bruised as the man in back gets out and says, maybe you shouldn't have left Egypt, old man. So clearly that man in the back was just a dick. As for the rest of this, I like how the Doctor in Dr. Fate is actually meaning something here. Not that like it never is, but I like that it is, he's in training to become a doctor, and as such, he is also now in training to become Fate itself. So we get that sort of double whammy here of a double meaning in the title. Art style, it's divisive. I like it. I think that it fits the tone. It's very sketchy, and so when things start getting weird, it really does work for it in that it's able to play up that weirdness factor. I don't think it's for everyone, but I personally think it really works for the style here. Beyond that, I mean, you have to read the sneak peek with it. Obviously, it's included in the trade, but if you didn't know that and just picked up issue 1, I'd imagine that it's actually kind of a little bit of a letdown to come into this and be like, oh, he just automatically is facing down the helmet? Like, how did we get here? Who is this kid? So, yeah, it's kind of a weird one in that regard, but I still like it. I'm going to say 7.5 for this one, and I'm looking forward to seeing kind of more of the relationship dynamics. I think that's going to be the most interesting part here, is how does Khalid kind of pull a Spider-Man of how does he balance all of his normal relationships while also having this intense power. So, yeah. 7. Martian Manhunter #1, written by Rob Williams, art by Eddy Barrows. So, like every other book, we've got a sneak peek from the Convergence issues, and we've got 2, as far as I can tell, NASA scientists who have contacted Martian Manhunter and said, hey, look, people aren't caring because, like, space travel is boring in a world with superheroes flying around, but we've got some astronauts who we have not heard anything from stranded on the moon. Martian Manhunter, we would like your help. And he's like, totally, I'm up. So he just immediately flies up. And one of the scientists is like, hey, don't get me wrong, why did we not call Superman? And the other scientist, whose name is, I believe it's Helen, but we'll get to it later if not, she's like, this guy has all of Superman's powers and then some, and we don't know a damn thing about him. He can read/control minds. Like, we should be looking into him a lot more. I have a theory that he is really a lot more intimidating, but he takes this cutesy Martian Manhunter name just so we won't be terrified of his abilities. So Manhunter flies up to the moon. He gets outside the lunar lander. Helen, that is the woman's name, Helen Demoff. She's like, hey, can you hear me? I gave you a little microphone headset thing. And he's like, yes, I can hear you. I'm approaching the lander. The capsule door is slightly open, so that's concerning. And we see as it landed on the moon, he does have flashbacks to his own planet of Mars. And he's like, people think that I am so stuck in the past of Mars. Like, that's kind of my whole thing, is my planet died and all that stuff. But, like, past and present, the way we consider memories is very different for the Martian people. So, like, I see it vividly and exactly how it happened. And, like, people would think that I'm insane if I said this as a person, but it's like it's right in front of me. And I just want to scream all the time. So, as he opens up the lunar module, inside, all the astronauts are dead. Their spines have been ripped out. Their heads are cut off. And we see this giant, I'm going to call white Martian, because it's white, and it kind of looks like John Jones. And it's huge and it's massive and it's grinning at him and it says, John. And immediately Martian Manhunter's like, well, oh my God, what the heck? So he says, like, later on, I tried to figure out, was this a dream? Was it not? But, like, I then realized that I shouldn't have been able to hear it in the vacuum of space. And it was actually speaking to me with my own voice. And it says, shush, the epiphany is here. And then it immediately busts out of the lunar module and just starts booking it down to Earth. And John just watches on, terrified, as Helen's on the comms being like, John? Hey, John? What's going on? Are they alive? What's going on? And John's just like, they're all dead. There was a mishap with the door. I'm so sorry. And they're like, oh, well, thank you anyway. We appreciate your efforts. And John is just on his knees on the moon like, oh, God, what was that? So, continuing pretty much directly onto that, we get Mr. Biscuits. Who's Mr. Biscuits? Well, it's a creature who is definitely Martian. He's dressed in like an old-timey looking suit, and he's got some sort of bag over his head. Only his eyes are cut out, and a sign around his neck that says, Mr. Biscuits, only wake in case of emergencies. And we get a bunch of kids who are looking into an abandoned building where Mr. Biscuits is, and they're just like, should we go wake him up? He said that he wanted these things that we got, and they're like, oh, I don't know, it said don't wake him up unless it's an emergency. But this one girl goes in, And she's like, I'll do it. Don't worry about it. So she takes the bag and goes to wake up Mr. Biscuits. And it's like giving snoring noises. And she comes to the realization that the snoring noises are coming from his armpits. And all of a sudden his eyes snap open, hand moves over and just sits in front of her face, just like waiting for her to give what it needs to give. And he twitches it around and she drops the bag into his hand. He immediately snatches it and sees that it is full of biscuits. And she's like, hey, you can't just snatch that. You got to say please and thank you. That's what good people do. And so he hobbles up onto a cane that he has and he reaches out towards the girl. And he's like 8 feet tall. He's ridiculously huge. And he's just like, good people. There's something behind your ear. And we see her him managing to pull a quarter out from behind her ear. And she says, are you good? And he's like, I don't know. So remember that epiphany thing I said about 2 minutes ago? Turns out it's a thing that's just happening right now. And we see Martian Manhunter is sending out a psychic message to as many people as he can, saying, hey, look, up in the sky, there's a bunch of terrorist stuff going on. I'm dealing with a plane over the South Pacific, and it's called the Epiphany. And please save as many people as you can all around the globe. This is Martian Manhunter coming back from the moon. Please do whatever you can. And so he grabs hold of the plane, tries to pull it up. He's like, okay, I can hear people screaming inside. I got to take care of that first. So he goes inside and he tells everyone on the plane to fall asleep. They, of course, immediately do. But as he's focusing on that, all of a sudden, this woman sitting next to him gets this horrific looking grin and her skin goes pale white, and it's implied it's the White Martian. And he's like, oh, we need you to turn this planet red, John. The epiphany has begun. Accept what you are. You were created to be, to join us. And he's just like, no, you're wrong. And so he comes out of the plane, transforms into this massive green dragon that manages to hold the plane up as the engines are exploding and guide it down safely to the water. And he's like, I'm not a superhero. I'm just a Martian, but God help you, my people have come for your planet. He also says that he was made to conquer this planet, so that's also a thing here. We then cut to the Watchtower, which has Superman in his t-shirt form, Flash and Cyborg, and they're like, okay, so everyone heard John Jones saying all that stuff about terrorism and like whatever else. He's over the South Pacific, sure, but then Cyborg pulls up the whole globe and he's like, there's stuff going on all over the globe. We need everyone in to help with this. So then we cut to Dubai, where a cat burglar is standing outside the window of this Crown Prince character, and he's just like, all right, go ahead. I know your schedule. You're going to turn off the TV soon, go to bed, and then, or you're going to leave for the night, and then I can go in and steal all your stuff. And as she's watching this happen, all of a sudden there's a knock at the door, someone unexpected, and she's like, oh, God, that complicates everything. And then this character turns out is White Martian related, starts transforming, and kills this guy in a horrifically bloody mess, enough to coat the entire window. And she keeps trying to peer through the window, and then all of a sudden, a hand wipes it off, and you just see the White Martian face just being like, I see you, and I know who you are. And she's like, oh my God. And so she starts running down the ledge that she's on and trying to escape. We then see the plane that John saved, dropped off on an island. All the people have disembarked. John recuperates from his dragon form, and as he's like mid-transformation, a kid comes up, and he's like, hey, I hope all of you are safe. And she's like, oh my God, a monster. And he's like, what? No, I'm not a monster. And so he flies off looking all sad. We then cut to D.C., where we meet an FBI agent named Agent Wessel, possibly Daryl Wessel, who is called in because there was a boy who's crippled in a wheelchair. He's never been able to leave the wheelchair. He was pulled out of a group home by his mother, and then as they cross state lines, it's become a federal crime, but the kid killed his mother, straight up got out of the chair and strangled her. And that shouldn't be possible because the kid is confined to the wheelchair for life. So Wessel comes in, starts talking to Liew, the kid. And Leo's like, oh, I did it because she was so very annoying and all that stuff. And, you know, we have our friends in high places, Daryl, and the epiphany. Listen. And then all of a sudden, bombs and explosions start going off all around Washington, D.C., right behind Wessel. And he's just like, Liew, I don't know how the hell you did that, but like, how did you know? And she's like, oh, you know those bad things that happen on the news every night? How people are so cruel to each other? What if it wasn't people, Wessel? What if it was something else? So we then show the news specifically from NASA headquarters, and it's, I guess, the president basically saying, yeah, well, all these terrorist threats that have happened around the world, they could not possibly be of terrorist origin, because there's no way terrorists could be that efficient together. Like, some of their ideologies are just wholesale different, so there's no way they work together. We're not sure what it is, but it's nuts. And then we see his eyes are glowing red and all that stuff. So then Helen's watching the TV. Martian Manhunter comes up and he looks all depressed behind her. And he's like, hey, Helen. And she's like, oh, hey, John, what do you want? And he's like, I need you to kill me. And so we cut back one last time to Mr. Biscuits. He's handing the quarter over to the kid. And he's like, yes, I found this big fat metal object of currency behind your ear. But also not really. And she runs off. She says thank you. And he's like, yes, well, you did bring me biscuits. It's only fair. And then these huge proboscis tentacle things come out of his mouth, just start slurping up all the biscuits, and he says, good. And that's the issue. That's it. I don't know what to make of it yet. The idea that I think I'm getting from this is that there's different aspects of Martian Manhunter. I'm not sure who. Obviously, the White Martian doesn't seem like it is one, but it might be. Mr. Biscuit seems like it is one. And yeah, we got a couple other characters here, but we'll see how all that turns out. Honestly, it's good introduction. I think that there's a lot of mystery going on here, and I like Mr. Biscuits as a character. He's nice and fun, and I want to see how he continues. So I think this one is probably going to be a... I'll say a 7. I'm feeling good with a 7. I think it's a bit too early to give it the 8 because it's still just so much up in the air. But I like the sneak peek. That's not what I'm rating here, but I like the sneak peek and how it leads into the main book itself. So, 7. Sinestro number 12, written by Cullen Bunn, art by Brad Walker. First off, though, is the sneak peek from Convergence. We pick up in a random-ass sector. Some planet that was a sanctuary or whatever else has been invaded and taken over by Kanjar Roux, who is some sort of dictator. I believe we saw him back in the main Green Lantern book. And he's like, all you people suck, and I'm here to take you over. You're all pitiable and vulnerable and whatnot. And no one's coming to help you because the Green Lanterns are gone. And a voice from the sky comes down saying, oh yeah, the Green Lanterns are gone, but that doesn't mean the Yellow Lanterns won't show up. And so in comes the Sinestro Corps, and we see everyone that we come to accept. However, Soranik is now wearing Yellow Lantern garb. This is a flash forward into the future. So Sinestro says, yeah, what is it they say? Beware my power. And then Kanjar Roux's getting ready to fight. He's got a big energy rod thing. And he's like, oh, why? You guys aren't peacekeepers. What is this, shakedown? He's like, no, we're not peacekeeper. We're peacemakers. We're here to make the peace. And only then can we keep it, right, daughter? And Soranik's like, yeah, whatever, dad. So at that point, Kanjar Roux tries to like puff up his chest, being like, I've conquered worlds. And Sinestro's like, yeah, well, you know what? I don't care. And so immediately we get a fight, and we just kind of get introductions to everybody in the group. We got Arkillo, Lysidrax, whatever the last name is, Dej Trevius, Reagan Kale, Becca of the New Gods, and then, of course, Soranik. And Sinestro is fighting directly against Kanjar Roux, and Kanjar's like, hey, you're like me, you're a conqueror. And he's like, no, I'm nothing like you. And he uses his yellow ring to overpower the energy rod. And he's like, you should have read the instruction manual. You have so many more powers that you have yet to unlock. And so he explodes it, punches away. Kanjar Roux manages to get his hand on the energy rod. And he's like, I'm going to look after this for you, along with all of the other weapons that you have on this planet. We're just going to take all that for you. And Soranik's just like, hey, I can't get the yellow ring to provide medical care to the people here, and like it's just not working. And Sinestro says, focus on the guilt of every patient you've ever lost and the dread of it happening again. And she's like, oh, it does work. Okay, got it. And Sinestro's like, yeah, you were trained under Green Lanterns to resist fear, but like you can use fear as an ally as well. So we see them teleporting and just carrying away all of the weapons off of this planet. And Kanjar Roux's like, you came here just to steal my stuff? And he's like, no, I came here to help my people. There are Korrigarians here, and I've come for them, but stealing your weapons, yeah, that's a bonus. I'm taking that. And Conjuro's like, hey, I can instill fear too. You should make me a Yellow Lantern. I totally would be great. I can totally do that. And Sinestro looks at all the other people on the planet now that he's without weapons as they start swarming Conjuro, pissed off faces. And he's like, does it look like they're afraid of you? So that's the sneak peek. The main issue here, if you remember from the previous issue, is that New Korrigar has a nuclear reactor under the planet that went into meltdown mode. Somebody on his team is betraying him, and we don't know who. So we see as they are down there, Sorenix basically saying like, hey, look, our people are up top and all them. You've made them this planet, but it's about to self-destruct. We have to protect them. We got to get them off this planet. And Sinestro's like, that would be a great idea if there was any chance that this planet was going to explode, but I totally got it under control. And she's like, what? How do you have this under? You haven't even done anything. You haven't even looked at it yet. And he's just like, I always manage to get it under control. Don't worry about it. And Sorenix just starts losing it. Just like, you are so egotistical that you are willing to gamble with the lives of our entire people just because you believe in your own self-righteousness or whatever. And he's like, it's not a gamble if I know I'm going to do it. And she's like, oh my God, you are literally the worst. So he says, yeah, well, I'm not changing my plans now. Go up there. Yeah, I don't need you to agree with my choices, but you need to support them. And she's like, I'm not one of your lanterns. You don't get to control me like that. So he flies off. Melissa comes up being like, she's going to betray you, right? Like, you get that? And she's like, yeah, seems like there's a lot of that going around right now, but at least it'll give you plenty of stories to tell. So at that point, he flies off. He tries getting back into the war world, which they, of course, had taken over as of a couple issues ago. And Lissa's like, so you know how you're going to contain the reactor breach? And it's like, oh, our scientists are working on it. And if not, well, I'm sure you've already seen what I'm going to do after that. So at that point, they make the point of saying, hey, why haven't you told Sorenix about the rapture of the Green Lanterns, all of their sudden disappearance? And he's like, they're upcoming. I guess it hasn't happened yet, but he's like, them being gone is good for us. However, I don't want her knowing about it because she would do something rash, and I don't need her to be doing that right now. So we see Sorenix is talking to one of the Korrigarians, and she's just like, am I the only one who realizes how much Sinestro is backsliding here? Like, he was starting off with this cause of, like, protecting the Korrigarians, and now it seems like he's prepping for war, and I just don't understand. Like, I'm taking crazy pills here. Like, no one else is seeing him backslide so bad. And the Korrigarian leader's just like, we all see that. We all get it, but we never thought that his initial cause was noble either. We've always seen him in the negative light. You're the only one who saw him in the positive. And she's like, cool, great, glad I'm the only one he could fool. And she's like, hey, don't take it personally. He was only ever trying to put in the effort to fool you. He didn't care about what the rest of us thought. So at that point, Sorenix's like, yeah, well, I'm not just going to sit back and let our people get blown up because he's unwilling to do something here. So we see Sinestro's looking at all the people in his corps, trying to figure out who's going to betray him, all that sort of stuff. And he's like, yeah, I'm at a crossroads here. The Korrigarian thing is kind of a focus of mine, but also with the Green Lanterns coming up and being gone, I've got a war coming up and something I'm going to need to focus on. So he gets a call from one of the scientists basically saying, we have no idea how to stop the reactor. It was set in place without any sort of off switch, and we are doing our best here. But by the time we get through all the safeguards and whatnot, it might be too late. And in comes Des Trevius saying, hey, I know you're a bit busy with the whole blowing up thing, but your daughter's making her move against you. Yeah, I think you'd want to know. So we cut over to War World, and we see something about a Yellow Lantern seed named Ranks. I'm unfamiliar, but apparently it is bonding and burying itself into War World, and they are merging to become one. And Sorenix like, what the hell, Ranks? What are you up to? This is too much. And so she goes off. She's trying to get a transport vehicle for all the Korrigarians on the planet. And Sinestro comes up being like, did you really think that you were just going to steal one of these and sneak away? Like, did you think I wouldn't notice that? And he's like, maybe I should blame myself. I have kind of spoiled you here. I haven't taught you properly. You've been learning under Green Lantern rules, and clearly that is not up to snuff. And she's just like, Oh, look, I played along with you because I wanted to keep our people safe, but you are so blinded by your own arrogance that you're going to get our people killed. So I'm taking them away from here and away from you. And he's like, you're going to have to get through me first if that's what you want to do. And she just unloads, takes punches, just like, all right, fair enough. We're doing the fight. We're doing the fight. Let's bring it. So Sinestro comes up just being like, oh, after everything that you've seen, everything like that, it's all just been prelude to the lesson. This is where you're finally going to learn something. So they just start going at each other, both verbally and physically here. It's a big, big battle. And she's like, I don't want to be anything like you. You're the worst. Everything about you is the worst. And spending time with you here has only confirmed that. And she's getting so pissed off. Like, she's blowing up the ship that was going to use to transport the people off. And she's just like, oh, and what are you going to do now, huh? Maybe you'll contact the Green Lantern Corps? Well, just letting you know, that's going to be a little bit harder than you think it is to do. And she's like, I don't care. I'll figure a way out of this. I'll make it work. And he basically says, look, you think I'm holding back, and yeah, you're right, I am. I have no interest in harming you. However, you keep on attacking without fear, and I'm going to show you that that's why you lose. And he throws her down into the planet, manages to slap some handcuffs on her, and uses the constructs to remove the Green Lantern ring from her finger. And once it's off, she's like, no, that's my ring. I need that. Please give me that back. And it floats away and just like, no, I'm only trying to do for you what you were doing for the Corps Guardians. I am saving you. And he slaps a yellow ring on her finger and says, you may not have the ability to instill great fear yet, but we'll get there. And that's the issue. So, yeah, big swings. Simultaneously, it feels like a lot happens, but a lot of it feels like setup. Like, whatever this thing is with ranks, whatever that is going into the planet, the meltdown still happening there, who's going to betray Sinestro, and then obviously transitioning Soranik over from green to yellow. All that stuff kind of just feels like we're coming into the DCU era, we're making some big swings, some big changes, and we're going to be moving on to this other thing. So it's not bad. It is just kind of housekeeping, though. So I think I'm going to go with I'll go with a 7. That seems fair to me. Doomed #1, written by Scott Lobdell, art by Javier Fernandez. So we've got a sneak peek from the Convergence issues in front of this one. It's really just set further ahead. It's honestly not even at the end of issue 1 do we get to this. So we open up with whoever this is, this person is a horrific looking monster, and he says, oh yeah, that's me. I bet you're wondering how I got in this sort of situation, facing down against my arch nemesis that I just found out I had today. How cool is it that I have an arch nemesis? And we see he's trying to play it off as like, this is how cool I feel in my head. But in actuality, here's what's going down. And he's down on the ground, just like coughing, barely able to stand up. And he's like, yeah, I thought I was invulnerable, but this did not work out. And there's this guy hovering over top saying that he is the Alpha Centurion and you will not be hurting these people today, my scaly compatriots. And he's like, I'm sorry, what did you just call me? I don't want anything to do with that. However, he's trying to tell Alpha Centurion, I'm not a threat, I'm just a guy. But all of his talking is roars and growls, so he can't get anything across. And Alpha Centurion, because they're in Metropolis, picks up the Daily Planet globe and is just like, safe passage on the river Styx, you beast. And he's about to cast it down when all of a sudden he unleashes this deep roar that manages to blast him with some sort of energy and makes his chest explode. It doesn't seem like he's dead, but at least he ain't doing so hot. So we also get to mention a few other characters here, like Jane and Aunt Belle, who I guess are just around. And Dune stands up and he's just like, oh God, I hope I didn't kill this guy. Please get up. And then cops show up. They start firing bullets at him and they just bounce right off. And they're like, oh, stop right there, Doomsday. So apparently he might be called Doomsday. I'm going to keep calling him Doomed. And he's just like, oh man, this guy had actual superpowers. I don't even want to know what I might do to a cop. I got to get out of here. And so he just leaps down the highway, gets out of there as fast as possible. and ends up crashing into some random building. And as he's out of sight, he starts transitioning back into his normal form, and apparently there were clothes in that building. So he makes his way back to the crime scene, and cops are telling him to disperse, and one of the cops is just like, oh, what, is English your second language? I said move along. And in comes a roommate of his named Roman, and the roommate says, Reiser, because that's the guy's name. Reiser, hey, you good, man? And he's like, yeah, totally. What happened to Jane and my aunt? And he's like, oh, Jane took your aunt home. Everyone's fine. Don't worry about it. How about we just get back to the loft and we'll get you out of these weird-ass clothes you're wearing? And he's like, oh, yeah, you're the best roommate ever, Roman. And he says, yeah, he's not really, but he is definitely my best friend. So it turns out, because of the way they do the shadows on the following page, he's Alpha Centurion. Oh, my God, whoever was crazy. So, yeah, they don't recognize each other as their mortal enemies, but that's what it is. And they say, yeah, I'm sure he has his own problems. Don't we all? So that's the main issue, or that is the sneak peek. On to the main issue. We once again open in media res, where Doomed is in some unfamiliar place surrounded by a bunch of defunct subway cars, and he's fully transformed, and there's like a concentric ring of circles around him on this tile floor, and he's like, what the hell is this? Where am I? I don't even know what's happening here. It looks like this is like a point of impact, but I would be dead if that's the case. And so he gets up and he thinks he's just been drinking too hard. He wipes off a mirror and he sees his current face and he's like, oh my God, I'm a monster. And he just starts screaming out of anger and pain and whatever else. So then we cut back to Reiser as he's on the best day of his life. He just got a job at Star Labs. He's leaping over subway trains. He's getting texts from his aunt, or subway gates to get to the train. He gets a text from his aunt about whether her dog needs braces because she's quirky like that. And as he finally gets to Star Labs, he's like, oh, this is the best. Everyone's like so smart here. I'm so happy I got this chance to be an intern. And then they get into orientation and they're basically just like, don't get killed. That's their primary focus here. And so they get a little bit of a tour, a bunch of cool stuff's there, and finally they get through the checklist of what all the interns will be doing, and it's just Reiser and a girl named Jane left over. And they are essentially given the midnight shift where they will be scrubbing down a contaminated quarantine area, and that's their job. And Reiser's like, that's great. We don't have any supervision. Like, they trust us that much. And Jane's like, you're an idiot. This is grunt work. This is literally the worst possible option. Why they don't see us as potential at all? Like, this sucks. So Reiser goes back home. Turns out him and Roman live in the same building as Clark Kent, and Clark just is leaving one day and he's like, good morning, gentlemen. And they're just like, hey, dude, what's up? And just continues on its that way. But it turns out that they are down a roommate because Nigel left, so they are interviewing new roommates. It's not going well. They get a whole bunch of just random people that are not good, and then there's this one girl who says that she's a writer, she's working on a book, but as much as Reiser thinks, yeah, hey, let's get her, he's outvoted by Roman and the other roommate that I'm not even sure gets a name. However, he goes out, chases her down, says, hey, I wanted you to know, I thought you would have made a good roommate. And she's like, oh, hey, yeah, cool. My name's Clarice. Hope to be seeing you around. So we then cut over to Aunt Belle's house, which it turns out like it's not really like a direct aunt. It's some sort of more distant aunt, or maybe not even a blood related. But regardless, he comes over and he basically helps her out because she's very scatterbrained and is trying to help her keep track of things. She's got a dog. Dog's crazy. And we get a panel of him buying a tennis ball for the dog, tossing it out the window, and then there's a loud crash noise, implying the dog either just caused a massive accident or is dead. But we cut back to Star Labs later that night because obviously they're working midnight shift. Reiser volunteers to go out and do the scrubbing work to scrub down the walls while Jane stays inside and just observes, keep tracks of things from behind the glass. And she's like, you are so enthusiastic. I don't understand you at all. And he's like, what are you talking? This is awesome. This is going to be the coolest night ever. And after like 2 hours, he's like, okay, this is actually getting a little bit boring. I'm not going to lie. So she says she has to go pee. He's like, yeah, don't worry about it. And he thinks, God, it is so hot here in this suit. So he takes off the hat of the hazmat suit, just relaxes for a minute, takes some nice deep breaths, and then he's like, oh crap, right, I'm in a contaminated area. So he throws it back down quick before Jane gets back, and she's like, oh, did I miss anything? He's like, no, not at all. So as he's making his way back home that night, he's like, I still feel great. I don't think anything would have happened. Maybe it would have happened by now, whatever. He runs back into Clarice, and Clarice says, hey, I found a lead on a different apartment, so, everything's working out for me. You want to come check it out? And he's like, yeah, sure, why not? So, turns out it's the future site of Lex Plaza. It's still under construction, but there is a model home up in the penthouse, and she's squatting there. And he's like, oh, that's awesome, cool. Does it have, all the amenities? And she's like, yeah, totally, it's all wired up. So she's like, I'm gonna go take a shower, I'll be right back. And he's like, oh, that's cool, I'll just be here. And so as she turns on the shower, she's still talking to him, like, so tell me about your day, what was going on? He's like, no, it was nothing. It was just kind of grunt work or whatever. And she's like, oh, really, Star Labs? Why don't you come in here and tell me about it? And all of a sudden, that sparks him, and he starts to transform, and he lets out a grrr. And as she throws a towel on, comes out of the shower, we see a hole has burnt its way straight through her bed, down through the tile floor, and into the beginning of the issue. So that's Doomed, number 1. In terms of Scott Lobdell books, it is fine enough. It doesn't feel like it's punched to the gills with unnecessary humor or punchlines just for the sake of having punchlines. I think it does a decent job of at least establishing the situation for our main character, getting us in feeling of who he is kind of as a character. I like this optimism he has, and then he's just given the worst possible hand. But as it comes out for our first issue, it doesn't really feel like much is going on. We barely get anything of the Doom stuff. If you ignore the sneak peek, obviously that's its own separate thing. So I think I'm probably going to say this one is it feels like a 6.5 to me. I can't quite get up to the 7 yet, but maybe once we start developing, his power set, who he is, how he deals with this sort of stuff, maybe it'll get a little bit better. As long as we don't fall into the typical Scott Lobdell traps. And that's it. That is all the comics put out by DC Comics this June 17th, 2015, and I'm going to try to keep this ending section pretty brief, all things considered. So next episode, 199, one episode away from the big 200, in which I will be doing nothing special at all, not a goddamn thing. So just be aware of that coming up, I know, sitting on the edge of your seat. In terms of next week's episode, though, we don't actually have too many new number ones, at least in comparison to this week. We have, in no particular order, Batgirl, Gotham by Midnight, Grayson, We Are Robin, Superman, Green Lantern Lost Army, Aquaman, Flash, Justice League 3001, Deathstroke, and Teen Titans. So new number ones out of that are, of course, We Are Robin, and Justice League 3001 being a follow-up tie-in to Justice League 3000, and then obviously Green Lantern The Lost Army is a mini-series that kind of explores, oh yeah, Green Lantern Corps, what happened to that? So yeah, not really much more to say. Be sure to check out that episode. But if you have anything you'd like to add onto the comics I talked about this week and last week, any week at all, go ahead and hit me up in the comments down beneath this YouTube video if that's the method you're watching. If you're listening to the audio feed, well, you can check the description on that. We got tons of places you can comment. We've got a subreddit, a Discord, a Patreon, a Discord, a Patreon, a Patreon. I don't know why I pushed that so hard. I really have nothing as a stake in it, but you should. There's stuff there that you might enjoy, I guess. Anyway, that's going to do it for me. Thank you very much for watching, listening, however you consume this podcast. Be sure to interact with it positively. Tell it looks nice today because it is very depressed. And as always, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.